love you guys too.
Whatever.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me is my trusty co-host, Sheikh Amir.
Assalamu alaikum.
And the one and only Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have a wonderful show for you guys this afternoon. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and throw a comment in the comment section below. It really does help us out. Thank you so much. If you are would be so generous to do that.
Very nice.
Our guest today is
Very handsome. Used to be a model.
Yeah.
We have to mention that, mashallah, tabarakallah.
Former model.
In a former life, used to be a model.
Former honey farmer.
He is Abdullah Felten from Feltenfarms. He's a beekeeper, and inshallah, we're hoping to have a
Gonna get in it tonight,
fun discussion with him.
inshallah.
All right, Abdullah, welcome to the show. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
There you go.
We've,
Get into it.
we obviously, I'm not making excuses for me being late today, but we've, Qadr Allah is real. We've planned this multiple times, but it's finally happening, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
And I think this is going to be a really special one because a lot of people have questions. I told people that we're going to have a podcast with a beekeeper, and they sent me some questions.
Awesome.
And inshallah.
Yeah, Sheikh always likes to blame Qadr Allah whenever. I just love this card that the Sheikh have. Qadr Allah.
No, I'm not using the excuse. I'm not using the excuse.
Qadr Allah, this is what
Bro,
happens. I'm too busy for you little peasants. I have a life, and you peasants.
Didn't this podcast, we tried it multiple times and something ended up always happening, but
With
alhamdulillah
you.
today. No, not only with me.
With you always. You're the one who always canceled shit.
Yeah, I think it was you.
No, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It was with
Sometimes
you.
No.
It's
Anyways,
a midnight qiyam, or it's removing. Or
That's the Ramadan, bro.
It's
It
my
was moving.
anniversary weekend,
Yeah.
or I mean, just all kinds
Exactly.
of stuff.
Wallahi.
Yeah.
That was
That
exactly
was
it.
2 weeks ago.
He has a great memory. He
It actually happened 2 weeks ago.
I know.
Shoot.
your anniversary, then you were moving, or you were helping someone move. It was something every time.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
I
Sheikh.
shouldn't have brought that up. That's okay. But anyway,
Qadr
let's
Allah.
talk about our guest.
No, but it was Qadr Allah, right?
You know how you know he's lying? Because his eyes are going from green to blue.
Yeah. All right, let's not make it about me. Let's make it about our guest, bro. Come on. Sorry about that, Abdullah.
No.
Anyways, how you doing, man? Why are you here?
Alhamdulillah.
What are you doing here?
I don't know, actually. I'm going to leave.
Get out while you can.
Talk to you guys about honey.
Yeah, tell us a little about
Everything about
Feltenfarms.
bees.
We go to a lot of.
Oh no, rewind a bit. Like
Yeah.
how did you want to get into like honey farming and just farming in general? Like
So before we get
what kind
there,
of
like,
farm is this?
before we get there, hold on.
Yeah.
So I think some of you guys already know him. I don't. We haven't had a chance.
I've known
to
him for a
meet.
while, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we just start about who you are?
Yeah.
Wow,
Let's start with
who
that.
am I? Where do you want to start?
That's a
Who am
very
I?
philosophical question.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, hey, are you native Chicago?
Yeah, I was
Oh,
born
okay.
and raised in Streamwood, Illinois.
Oh, Streamwood.
Yeah, Streamwood. I currently live in Elgin.
Okay.
So, but as far as how I got into farming, I always wanted to be in farming since I was a kid, but ended up becoming a teacher. So I was a high school science teacher, went to Benedictine University,
Oh.
and then soon after got a job in Kuwait. I was
Wait,
teaching science.
You
out
became
there.
Muslim in university, or
Oh, then I became Muslim at 20.
okay.
I was at Elgin Community College, where I currently work as well. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
What do you do at
Full
Elgin
circle.
Community College?
I tutor.
You tutor. Very nice.
So when you said you wanted to be a farmer, were you like, like?
This is when I was a kid.
Yeah, but I mean, is it like, did you collect like John Deere tractors and?
No, as a
Oh,
kid,
okay.
I just loved animals,
Okay.
loved the idea of nature. Always had an
So, like,
affinity
giant deer.
towards
Awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
was your family like a big camping
that.
family?
Not at all.
and-
Not
okay.
at all. I just love nature and loved
Oh, wow.
animals, and always going to farms. I always felt a lot of comfort in it.
Mm.
You know,
Oh,
seeing
subhanallah.
farmers and how they just seem like very relaxed people, and dealing with animals.
I do think he's right though. Like when you see farming people, like they may be simple, but it feels like their life is just figured out.
Yeah.
Like they
What a
know
horrible thing to say to a guest. Did you collect John Deere tractors? I just got that.
No, what
Did
do
you
you mean? Why is
collect
it horrible?
Hey, what did you get?
Yeah, what's horrible about that?
As a
Because I'm a
kid, did you
farmer.
collect John Deere tractors?
No, because you know in the farm, like they have these whole things. They have
No,
like
he's,
you know,
he's right. Farmers do have a
Yeah.
lot, but
I know they do. I know.
they have
but-
memorabilia and like they collect. They know
Mm.
like these things. Anyways,
we have hives on a farm that a guy has over 70
Tractors, right?
Ellis Charm tractors.
oh, yeah.
Over
Wow.
70. It's just a huge collection.
wow.
They're worth money and people restore them just
No,
like
I know
people
they
restore
are.
cars.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe he got into farming because
that
he
wasn't
was
me.
around the equipment. You know.
No, that wasn't me.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I always noticed that too about like farmers. Like, it feels like that everything they do, like it's already like kind of, there's
Just a
everything is set
calm-
schedule.
Yeah, calm way of life,
Yeah.
and just doing it.
Hard work.
And you know
calm
what?
life.
It's very
Right.
Muslim-like. You have to be up at dawn.
Yeah.
You got to do everything. You're in bed by night. Like you can do. Yeah, I mean, like it's just like a total Muslim lifestyle. Like, you live off the land. You have your own schedule. You do your work. You don't really. I mean, maybe now modern farming has changed, but like you don't really deal with banks like murabaha. You don't do any of that kind of stuff, right? You just kind of work for yourself.
On a
You-
small farming level, yeah.
Yeah, small farming. Yeah,
So
nowadays
is your farm like other produce or just bees?
Right now, we just do bees. We
Okay.
just got, we have 22 chickens now, hoping to expand on that just for egg
Wow.
production. And we have some fruit trees, but they're new, so they're not really producing fruit.
So what kind of fruit trees?
We have peach, pear, different apples,
Oh, wow.
nectarine. I mean, the eventual goal is that we have enough property where we can have udhiyah services on there,
Oh, wow,
do
mashallah.
chickens where people could just come on the weekend, you know, have a basket, go around, pick their own vegetables and fruit, weigh it.
Oh, awesome.
I'd like
That's
to have
what,
some
you know.
giraffes.
That's cool.
If I ever
Giraffes,
had farms.
yeah.
So if you ever need help
You
with
know?
planting, I'm a green thumb. Like at
Okay.
my old property, I planted apple tree, pear trees, raspberry bushes, grapevines,
Nice.
tomatoes, and everything came out.
Oh, Bolingbroke, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying, but apple trees and pear trees, they take a long time, like
Yeah.
5 to 6 years before they actually really start
Yeah,
Mm.
blooming
producing.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Plus all
take time.
the pests and things.
Yeah,
trying to
people think
devour
you're,
the
you're gonna
trees.
plant a tree today,
Yeah.
this year, and next year you're gonna get apples.
Yeah,
That's
our
what-
nectarine tree is just getting decimated by Japanese beetles.
But
So,
one,
yeah.
one question I have about the bee farm, did it kind of start off as an experiment and then you just kind of expanded, or you?
Kind of, yeah. Like the intention behind it was while I was in Kuwait, I was studying hijama, and while they would do hijama for some people, other people with autoimmune disorders, they would bring out this little box of honeybees and they would sting them, and these people would be in such crippling pain going to the clinic, and they would walk out fine. A couple months later, they'd come back and get their bee stings and go. So it was just like a miracle to witness that.
So what's the process behind that? Because usually autoimmune diseases, like anything from rheumatoid arthritis, whatever it may be, usually the crippling pain is like the inflammation in the body. So
Right.
does the bee sting work?
So
To-
literature that I've come across would say something along the lines of that cortisol is
Mhm.
released in the body to bring down the inflammation of a bee sting.
Mm.
And that in turn brings down the inflammation of what's in the joint perhaps, and that's what's causing pain. So now you have this release of cortisol bringing down the bee's
It's a
inflammation.
stimulation for your body to release
Right.
anti-inflammatory cortisol.
That's
which
it.
is- okay, yeah, because
So instead of getting like a cortisone shot.
right, and so part of the problem is that also if they're not using cortisol, like people who have like debilitating pain, they have to get on like either opiates or
Mhm.
I mean like or what they call NSAIDs, which are like ibuprofen,
Non-steroidal.
and that stuff ruins your gut health. And then or they have to get really bad. They have to start using steroids like prednisone.
Mm.
And what that does is, especially for people who are older, like women, it makes your bones brittle. Like you get more osteoporosis. It just I mean it's a hormone. It's testosterone, right? It's not good for you. I mean, if you too much of it, right? So this is an
Wow.
alternative way to
Yeah, so I
reduce
wanted
inflammation in the body.
Yeah, and also one of my theories is that a bee sting hurts so much that, and it only hurts for like a minute, but it's unbelievable pain. It's
Is
like
it really?
searing pain, and that for like a good minute, and then it drops down like a roller coaster ride, just goes up, and then it just drops down immediately.
Because I remember getting bee stung. Like I got stung like 3 times when I was younger. The first time I was like 5 years old. It was pretty painful. When I got older, I got stung. It was like It was like it wasn't like that painful.
I think it depends
on
where
the
you get
bee.
stung.
Yeah, where you get stung in the bee. So different bees, there's different amount of venom.
So
but-
do when bees sting you, do they leave their stinger in your body?
Yes. The stinger is barbed. Unlike, for example, a hornet or a wasp or yellow jacket, their stingers are smooth. So they use their stingers to attack and hunt prey. And they can do multiple stings and they don't die. A honeybee is only trying to protect the hive, or they'll attack fast-moving things. So when somebody starts swatting at a bee to get it away, that's the worst thing you could do if it's flying around just checking you out. It's not there to hunt. The only things that they're after is flowers, the nectar, and pollen. But their stinger is barbed, and it's attached to their intestine. So when they sting you, that barb, it also has muscles where it'll shift kind of back and forth and dig into you.
Wow.
And then they fly away, and it rips off of their intestine. So after that, within 24 hours, they'll die. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it's kind of like a kamikaze mission.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So since it's barbed,
Fidain mission.
is it
That's
harder
what
to take
we
out? I
call it.
remember when I was younger, they like put mud on it because they told me you're supposed to put mud on it. So
Yeah,
you put
no.
mud on it and comes. What's that? What are you supposed to do? You just leave it in?
Just wipe it off. It'll come out.
Oh, really?
The barbs are very fragile. It's enough to penetrate the skin, but I get stung hundreds of times. All you do is when you get stung, you just wipe it away. And it comes
Hundreds
right
of
out.
times.
Easily, yeah.
Do you know?
Throughout
Do
the
you
year,
know
not
what?
at one time.
Yeah, no, I know. So
Yeah.
Do you know what a Bedouin technique is to get rid of that?
Hmm.
Saliva from the camel.
Really?
Even they do it with splinters because it dissolves whatever it is.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
that's very interesting.
So I actually got stung by Brother Abdullah here.
Brother Abdullah here.
Yeah,
By one of
so
his
I just
bees,
wanted,
yeah.
wanted to try out the old muscles here
Mm.
in the traps. Got this big old cranium
Mm.
that's been lugged around. So I'm like, hey, let's get some bee stings done in my shoulders. Just to. My head is so sensitive that if the pillow is off just a little bit, I'll have like a really stiff neck like the next morning. Like everything has to be like perfect when I sleep, at least with my pillow.
Really?
It has to be at this thin level. Can't be a little too high. If it's too high, then So anyway,
So can you sleep without a pillow?
I never tried that.
Oh.
But if I sleep on my stomach, I think I can.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, Brother Abdullah here, went to him and he gave me a couple shots.
How did you
on
find
my
him to
shoulder.
do this?
We have mutual friends.
Okay,
and
got it.
My cousin's actually good friends with him as
Okay.
well. So, yeah. So he brought this. You guys want to pick up that jar and
That's really
and
this is
show
really
him?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it.
So what do you do? You just stick your hand in this jar and hope
So
it gets
one
stung?
thing I realized about these,
These little honeybees. Yeah.
if you guys can see these honeybees over here,
Yeah.
he just actually put some honey in here. I just realized they got a little more active. One was just climbing before that. I thought they were dead. He showed me these.
Now these honeybees are a bit yellow. The ones that he stung me with, they were a bit older, right?
I
These
think they were
look
just
young.
darker because before I sting someone, I'll usually wet them
Oh.
just so
Why?
that they can't fly away.
I thought these were
They're
like.
easier to grab, and when it's easier to grab, they don't sting me.
Do you accidentally squeeze them too hard by accident?
No, I'll just try to
Oh.
grab their wings, but
that's
you can see in there they're flailing their wings around.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
wide,
Mhm.
whereas when they're wet, those
It's
hydrogen
heavier
bonds,
for them to move,
right,
So
are
it's
just
like-
kind of
okay.
sticking them together.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting.
So-
So, real quick question before we get to you kind of move on because I'm curious now. So I'm seeing these bees that they're honeybees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in Mexico, I went to Tulum, and these Mayan people make their own honey.
Mm-hmm.
But their bees are entirely different.
Sure.
They're like this big, and they're black, and they don't even have I don't even think they have stingers on them.
That's what.
Like they're just like little. They look like little fruit flies almost.
Yeah, it's a great question. These type of bees are European honeybees. So it's a livestock. They're used specifically for getting honey. They're known to produce the most honey crop, or the biggest honey crop. So
Mhm.
for my purposes as a honey farmer, you might have different types of bees, but I'm not going to get that same crop yield as I would with these type of honeybees.
Which type are yours?
These are Italian bees.
Italian.
Yeah.
What
What about
Russian,
those
there's Italian.
Africanized honeybees?
So Africanized is a term used for a certain genetic line that's more of an aggressive hive or aggressive bees.
That's racist.
So it is what it is, man.
Absolutely,
my wife from
unequivocally.
Africa.
Coming from a white guy. What do you know?
My wife is from Africa.
Okay, sorry.
South
My
Africa.
black friend. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, so what's this big deal? Everyone's talking Manuka from New Zealand. Like, are those bees different, or is it just the way?
Have you guys ever had Manuka honey?
Yeah.
I have.
Did you feel any different?
No.
No, it's just a lot stronger.
I don't really
It just
think it's
tastes
different.
stronger.
So I'll be honest
That's
with you.
it.
The only honey that I've had that really tastes different is
Duan.
Duani.
Wadi
Duan. Yeah, from
Wadi
Yemen.
Duan.
Like I
That's the
and
best.
I'll eat like just straight wax and everything, and I love it, right? But
Have you had that, there, Abdullah?
What?
The,
Manuka?
the Yemeni Duani honey?
Duani from Wadi
From the
Duan.
mountains.
there's
It's
a
from the
speci-
mountains of.
Hold on, there's a
of-
specific wadi, like a valley in Yemen called Wadi Duan.
I know of it,
Yeah, so
but I
that-
haven't had it.
Okay, so that, I mean, it certainly tastes different than stuff I get in the
No, I
market.
had it in Egypt too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Manuka, I'm not trying to say it's the best or anything, but I mean, I think honey in the supermarket is definitely processed, probably whatever. But you can definitely taste. It's got a more, it's more of a flowery taste to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
So
all
true.
based on the flowers that the
Yeah.
bees are in that area. So wherever the
So
bees are at, that's what they're gonna collect.
what I've been told by these farmers who bring this is expensive, like
Tell them how
1
expensive it
kilo
is.
of wadi, like the ani asal, is about, I want to say, 600 riyal. So 3.67. So
Yeah,
you're
about
about 100
$200.
some dollars for.
It might be how difficult it is to get it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So
Yeah.
in the wadi, it's in the mountain, and they say you can get it from different areas, but they say they have to climb up. The higher the altitude, the better the honey is.
Mm.
So there is a task of going up and getting it,
Yeah.
and so it becomes more expensive.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's my
Just
favorite
that
honey.
risk.
Now-
It's so good. Like I didn't. He played it up so hard before he got it. I got this Yemeni honey. I'm like, okay, well, what is it? And I'm like, okay, let me try it. And then I tried it, and
Is this the same as Sidr honey?
no,
It's different.
No,
What's so different?
It's amazing. I
I
can't
mean, they
even
have sugar
describe it.
trees in the Duan, but it's just a different. I don't know if it's the climate, if it's the pollination. I don't know what it is, but that area. So there's a I don't know if this is true or not, but they say the honey mentioned in the Quran is from Duan, the Wadi Duan. Like, this is the honey the Quran talks about, right? So I mean, and generally, obviously, there's honey that everywhere, but they're saying that. Like, this is the honey they would get about in the Prophet. When you talk about medication of the Prophet, they would refer, because this honey would come across the peninsula.
Yeah, from
Would
the
be
mountains. The,
distributed.
hadith,
Right. Yeah.
the verse in the Quran refers to mountains and trees. And
Yeah.
some of
So
them
they would
refer
say
to
this is the honey that the Prophet would use and talk about, like, the benefit of it. So it's just different. I don't know, but but let me ask you this: is there a difference in the altitude of where things come from that would make a difference?
Sure.
of-
There's different at different altitudes. There's going to be different trees, bushes, flowers blooming. So also different areas where the pH of the soil is different. Different plants can survive in those. The honey that I brought here is different seasons. So in the springtime, you're going to have different flowers that are blooming than summer and then autumn. This flower here that I brought is called goldenrod. Yep. So this is
Wow.
just starting to bloom. This is what makes the autumn honey.
This looks like so country. You know, imagine like
Looks beautiful,
You know,
yeah.
you come to a country table, like a farm
Yeah.
table, and you put this
Yeah.
around. Like,
It
this
looks-
reminds me.
yeah.
In
Yeah.
the bath or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
So the autumn honey is just around the corner, but the bees will take the nectar from that and other flowers, like ornamental flowers that are in a particular area.
And if we can break this down a little bit, when you look at this and you say the nectar of this, where are they actually getting the honey from?
If you look closer,
Can
those are
you get this camera right here?
like hundreds of flowers on that.
So those little yellow.
Each one
balls
of
are
those
what
is its
they're
own
picking up,
flower.
right?
Yeah. So then within that is where they're going to collect the pollen as well as the nectar.
And that becomes this?
Subhanallah.
That's pollen.
But they get that from this.
Correct.
So
So people's allergies
Give it time.
are usually from like airborne pollen, which is kind of like tiny particles of dust flying in the air.
right.
The bees collect it like this, and that's their protein source.
So that's another question I was going to ask you. So they say generally if you have pollen allergies, to consume honey from the region where you have the pollen's coming from. So
They say that it will help with allergies.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that ingestion of a certain thing would equate to any type of immunity, but people swear by it. So I have people that buy the pollen. They'll feed their animals it. They'll eat it, consume it themselves, or the naturally occurring pollen that's in the honey.
So what's the I mean what do they say are the benefits of consuming pollen, or why would they give it to the animals? Is it a protein, or
It's a protein source. It's natural vitamin. It even kind of tastes like a natural multivitamin. Like if you want to try it, you're welcome to. And you see all the different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's with the colors? Yeah.
So
This one's all brown.
It looked like mini
Right.
Reese's Pieces.
if you ever look at pollen that's in stores, it's all yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that a lot of that's imported from China, just from monocrops.
Oh my.
You can see the diversity in these colors just going from spring, this is early summer, and here there's even some black pollen.
So how much do you take of this?
Take like a quarter teaspoon, just try it. Here, bismillah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Ooh, it smells interesting. I like the smell. Nice and sweet smelling.
I just harvested this yesterday. So all
Wow.
of these would be from the flowers blooming right now.
I'm trying to think like what it tastes like. So the consistency is chalky
Mm-hmm.
when you bite into it, but it's got a flavor burst.
It's got a sweet flavor to it.
Yeah, it's a
Really
flavor
nice.
burst.
Flavor burst.
It's kind of like
Here you go.
vitamin C
Want to try some?
ish, like those
Tastes really good.
tablets.
It's got a nice sweet taste to it, though.
Here,
And flowery. It's like a flowery taste to it.
try the difference in the types of honey.
Oh, snap. Here we go.
This is
Taste
it.
test, baby.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what honey is
This
this
is
one?
spring.
We're about
Spring.
to-
Yeah.
So
Honey taste
what
test?
is the most potent honey to eat?
Potent, flavor-wise, when you get to autumn, that's the most strong, most.
Well, health-wise,
robust.
what's the most potent?
Allah knows.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So one thing, I have a quick question while he's opening that honey. I noticed that these things were really, when I first got here, these honeybees were very lazy. They were sitting on the bottom. You had put some honey in there, a drop in there to feed them their nectar, which is their food, you said. And then they just got really energetic. Is that just, does that actually happen? Or is it
It could
just,
be that they're scared. They don't know where they're at. I took them from their home, and now they're just kind of being sticking together for protection.
I see.
And then I put some honey in there.
So this is tastes a lot like what I normally probably taste, the spring honey. Let me see what this one
Here,
is.
try the spring honey.
And then this one is summer.
That's summer. Yeah.
See, these guys, this is light in
Oh.
thing.
So this is getting stronger in taste.
By chance, yeah. So
Spring blossom. Oh, you have it on here too.
Yeah.
That's legit, dude.
the spring we harvest in June. So that's everything
Summer
they
blossom,
were collecting
okay.
through May through June.
The summer one tastes a little more flowery than the spring.
Yeah. The spring sometimes even tastes different, like cotton candy. Sometimes it's more
spring.
fruity. Yeah.
Yeah, the spring is very sweet.
Yeah.
Very like
So-
candy-ish.
Yeah.
All right, guys, here goes the summer blossom.
And
Bismillah.
then this is the
That's autumn.
fall. Oh, for yeah.
Yeah,
It's my
to me,
breakfast,
this
by the
kind
way.
of tastes like butterscotch.
Summer's a little more chewy.
It does.
It's got a different texture too. The texture
does.
is very
I like
too,
this
right?
one.
Yeah, autumn's the,
It's kind of like a tang to it. Like a slight little tang at the end
Yeah.
to it.
and that's from this plant.
And this has more of an aroma, a different aroma to it, where you can tell. I don't want to say it smells like ether, but it has like a
No, flowery. That's what I was saying. More flowery.
very, very
Yeah.
strong.
So
And
this
one,
is because
autumn.
of the type of
Autumn.
pollination that's
Bismillah.
happening.
The flowers that are blooming at that time. That's it. So now, when there's flowers blooming in May and June, there will be like a 2 to 3 week break. It's called a dearth, when there's no nectar out, and then all of a sudden, all these flowers start blooming again in the summer, and then you have
So it gets sweeter and sweeter.
sweeter kind of, but you also just have different flavor profiles and smells.
No,
Bro,
of course, yeah.
Derek, this is the first time Abdullah. You don't mind if I refer to you? I sometimes here, whatever. So this is the first time I've tasted 3 different honeys at once, and I see the like a huge difference between all
Yeah.
of them.
So
Most times, honey farmers, they just mix everything.
Yeah, that's why
together.
I was wondering if it tastes different. I was like, is this honey off or not? Like
Yeah.
when I get it from the store, but now I have 3 completely different flavors because they're all in front of me.
So I'm assuming something. So obviously, it's probably by summertime, it probably tastes a little more flowery because there's probably much more availability of different types of
I'd say that also
Pollen.
ornamental flowers are blooming. People are getting their gardens
seasonal
nice.
flowers. Yeah. Okay, right.
Hmm.
But so they can get pollen from any flower source.
I'd say most,
Okay.
because there might be some that are producing more than others. Pine trees make a lot of pollen.
Pine trees.
Yeah, or willows
Really
produce a
Weeping
lot of
willows?
pollen. Yeah,
I would think that pine
I thought
trees, because they're not
flowers
flowery,
that-
they're like
No,
very
they're-
brittle.
there's different types of pine trees,
Mm.
but like you have a white pine. There's images online where people will shake a branch and there's just a cloud of pollen coming off the tree. Try this. This is cream.
So do
honey.
bees ever?
So that's a question I have about. I always see this raw honey in these supermarkets.
It's a, I don't want to say a sales pitch, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So this creamed honey, all honey crystallizes. That's a big misconception that sugar's added. All honey, it's sweet. The majority of it is sugar. So about 82% to 85% of what's in this bottle is sugar. The other is water. There's other chemicals in there too, like riboflavins and things like that. But because of that, over time, it will start to crystallize. The only way to decrystallize it is with heat, but it has nothing to do with adding sugar. In fact, if a honey didn't crystallize, it's an indication that different syrups could have been added to it, or it's adulterated in some way.
Or some preservatives to not to like. Yeah, I mean, so the way we like, I mean, we've been taught like how because we buy honey from Yemen, people sometimes scam, so we check it, and like one way we'll know is like honey that's real honey doesn't freeze. You can put it in the freezer and it won't freeze. Or like if you like take honey and lift it from like the source, like fake honey or not real good honey, it'll end up being stringy, right? Whereas like pure honey, like either some of it's gonna pull to the top,
pull and then drop,
or some of it will pull to the bottom. It'll drop to the bottom, but it'll pull in one or the other. But like real, like kind of like I guess you want to say fake honey would be like the higher you raise it, you get like this, cheese string, like you're doing like that's kind of what happens.
But so if you can make that differentiation one more time, you have this honey, you have that honey.
So
what?
Hold that to the camera, Chef. Which one are you pointing?
This one. We have this honey.
What is that?
This is just your regular summer honey, autumn honey.
Yeah.
What you see in the supermarkets. You could do this. You can see that as liquidy. It's thick, but it's liquidy. And then you have this type of honey, which is like a paste. I used to get this stuff from like a place called Fruitful Yield because it was supposed to be like.
Are
the
there
best
different benefits to it?
So that's what. So why is this paste? If we can start off with that, why is this?
I
paste?
thought it was a candle.
Yeah,
it
look,
looks kind of like a candle.
it's like hard wax. It looks like wax, and it has a very creamy texture to it. What's the difference between this and this?
This is liquid. That's crystallized. That's it.
Yeah.
So in fact,
So
your
just
brother,
left open? Is that how
yeah,
it crystallizes, or
No.
why would that not crystallize?
the temperature.
Oh,
So at about 50 degrees, that's when honey starts to crystallize the fastest. So when we want to make this, because people are after that texture, it's very smooth, kind of like peanut butter.
Yeah.
Spreadable. We'll take our summer honey, and then we'll add creamed honey to a 50-pound bucket of it. And those small crystals are what's called the seed. So in Crystallology, to make different types of gems form or crystals, you have to have some kind of a seeding blueprint. And that's all we do is we add creamed honey to already liquid honey. Once we put it in jars, we'll store it for about 3 weeks in a refrigerator that's kept at 50 degrees. After 3 weeks, it's all like this.
so this is made
Wow.
from summer honey?
Correct.
But what is the original form of honey? Is it this or
This.
is it that? This, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
when
it's like
people
same
say
thing with like
raw-
yogurt. When you do yogurt and milk, when you put yogurt and milk and you let it. And
That's
then,
it.
Yeah, same concept.
But now you made a
But this
good
feels
point.
more concentrate.
It is, in a way. It's crystallized.
Yeah, it feels like it's like more
Yeah,
concentrated.
it gives you a hit, right? Like
right,
of
like
sweetness
that
right
one's
away.
more kind of like spreads around, but I think this stays more like clump, so you
Yeah,
feel more.
this is better for spreading on bread. I used to do that in the mornings, and it stays instead of dripping. That's why this was like really nice. And
along with your oregano oil.
yeah,
But one time I gave your brother one of these,
Uh-huh.
and he left it in his car, and it was like a 90-degree day. By the time he got home, it was liquid again.
wow.
So
Can you just put it in the
it's
fridge?
just the reverse. So if you put it in the fridge, it'll become harder.
Yeah, it's like
At this
ghee.
state,
It's
you
like
can
ghee.
keep it.
What
No.
ghee will do, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, it'll become like this again if you put it in the fridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah. Unless it becomes completely liquid, then it'll
You've
just
broken
make,
up.
It'll make like more chunky crystals
Oh,
that kind of look like sugar, and that's why people think, oh, is there sugar added to it?
Yeah.
These are very fine crystals, and by making that crystallization process take place faster, by putting it in a fridge, then it makes those finer crystals and makes it smooth like that.
Yeah. No, I remember like going. So, I think maybe 10 years ago. How long have you had this company for? Like
This is our 6th year.
Your 6th year, because I remember when obviously went to school with my brother. I used to see you around at BU. I used to see you around obviously you came to our house a few times, and then there were some rumblings where I heard that you started your bee company or your honey company, and I was at Mediterranean on Roosevelt Road. I was like, Felten Farms. I was like, wait, that can't Abdullah Felten. Derek Felten. Abdullah Derek Felten. That's what we used to call you for some reason. Abdullah Derek Felten. And then I called up my brother. I called a few people. I was like, hey, does he have a company now? Is it like legit? They're like, yeah, he has it. And then all the stores that I go to, especially in like DuPage County, Roosevelt Road,
Yep.
that area, you see Feltenfarms everywhere. Now, how much work actually goes into all of this? If you can you don't have to go into extreme detail, but from you have the bees to getting to the shelves, what's the process, the basic process?
So the taking care of bees is really seasonal. So I'm only working from March through November, beginning of November. In March, there's no flowers blooming. So if I have a hive that survived the winter, it's important to feed them some kind of carbohydrate source, and that's sugar. So a honey farmer would make sugar syrup. We're feeding the bees. Once the bees stop consuming that, that tells us that there's nectar out. So we'll stop feeding them sugar.
So
They'll stop themselves.
Wait, sugar syrup?
They'll automatically stop feeding.
From the sugar syrup, yeah. So
Wow.
I'm feeding them sugar syrup in buckets on the hive. Once let's say 1 week I check.
You just have it hanging under the hive, basically?
Actually set on top of the hive. There's like a
shelf.
of hole.
Uh-huh.
And then in the bucket, there's a little tiny hole with a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of lick it, and it makes a vacuum inside the bucket. That's
see.
upside down. So they'll be consuming that sugar. But let's say I check the hive 1 week, and that bucket's halfway full. I go back again, and it's still halfway full. They've stopped consuming that syrup. So now that tells me around mid to late April, early May, that flowers are starting to bloom and there's nectar. So I'll take that off. And then we add the honey boxes, which are called honey supers. They're boxes that are superior to where the colony has been at that point, and the queen is in there laying her eggs. So there's not really a mixture of that sugar syrup and the nectar that's coming in.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now that these honey boxes are on, that's where they start to store. Bees will store up in the hive and then work their way down.
So you do the sugar syrup just to keep them alive, pretty much.
That's
right?
it.
Okay.
You have to feed them more. So any beekeeper or honey farmer that says, "Oh, I don't feed my bees sugar," they either have no idea what they're doing, or I leave enough honey in them for them to survive the winter. It's a hit or miss. So you have to feed them in order for them to have some kind of food source.
Quick question. I tried this one,
Yeah.
and it was really soft. And this one's like kind of like a nut.
This one's hard. So
Yeah.
since we just harvested this, I brought it in just
I
for
can
today's
hold this
show.
up for you guys.
Oh.
So this is a soft one.
Yeah, it's not that they're different in texture.
Yeah.
This one in particular,
The
we haven't
multicolored.
dehydrated. So the pollen will naturally mold if you don't keep it in the freezer.
I see.
But for shelf life, we dehydrate it. It still has the same properties and everything, just not water. If you put that in
So this is
tea,
dehydrated.
correct.
And you have all these in your facility to dehydrate this stuff too.
Yeah. So the
Nice.
first thing, let's say today, I've got 3 hives that have pollen traps on them. The bees will carry in the pollen on their back legs, like you see this bee over here that has those balls on the back of their leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has collected pollen. She'll walk across a screen that's big enough.
And they'll get stuck in that. and
Her
then
leg will
float
go down, and when she pulls her
Yeah.
leg up, it pops off. So I just have a collection box. I'll freeze it first to kill anything like if there's moths or ants. Sometimes they like to crawl in. And after
So-
I've frozen it for about a week, then I'll take it out, dehydrate it, and then I'll jar it.
So the question. So these are little balls. So how long would it take of bees walking over screens to get this much pollen?
Well, this is a 1/4 pound. So I haven't done the math, but we've consistently done about 15 pounds per hive that we have it on. 45 pounds of this stuff
Really?
And how long?
Per season
over the whole year.
Okay.
or over the whole year?
Yeah.
Per hive. And how many hives did you say you have?
We have 50 hives, but on these I only have 3.
Got it.
Right? So that's 15 pounds of pollen that they've brought in
Subhanallah.
per hive.
Okay.
So how long would it take to collect?
It
one
literally
of
is
these?
nature's extract of like plants. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's pure
It's
plants.
the world's extract, basically, of all this stuff. This is
so
amazing.
this is the dehydrated version of this.
Correct.
See the colors. So
No. This is spring.
okay.
The dehydration doesn't change the color. The only
Okay.
thing it does is prolongs the shelf life.
Mm.
Yeah. Because some people don't want to deal with putting it in a freezer all the time, taking it out, putting it in a freezer.
Yeah.
Also for us, I don't have the capability doing this as just a small family business.
Yeah.
We're not going to buy huge refrigerators to store all this. So we have enough that we can at least process it.
This is more grainy
Yeah.
tasting.
Yeah.
So did you have to go to school to study a lot of this, or is this something you
No.
learned on your own?
I'd say 90% of it was YouTube.
Mm.
A lot of great YouTube resources. In fact, I was thinking to make a YouTube channel on how to beekeep
You should.
and just call it another beekeeping channel because there's just so many out there.
Mm.
Do you have all those cool outfits you wear?
The screens.
I usually just wear a hood. When the bees are really mad, I'll wear a whole jacket. But most of the time, I'll just wear a hood.
So you said something. Sorry to cut you off. You said something about personalities. Like you said, when we looked at this, and you said, "Subhanallah, they all have their own personalities." Because you saw on the bottom that they were stuck together, and Mort was like, "Are they mating?" You said, "No, they're actually feeding each other through." You said
There's a term for it.
There's a term, yeah. So, and now you just said when they're mad at you, then you'll wear the thing. Like, how do you know that?
Different temperature. Well, they'll start stinging me.
Start
That's how
stinging
I know.
you. I mean, that's kind of obvious.
It's just a part of it. You just like roll with the punches, start
That's
singing,
it.
you all good.
That's it. Yeah, different beehives have their own personality, and then bees as an individual almost have their own personality. So if I just took one bee out of a hive, it might be a good day or bad day for her. She'll just, check me out, walk around, see, look at things, clean herself, and that's it.
Do they recognize you?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, all right.
I don't believe so, because in a given month, a bee during the summertime, springtime, they only live for 4 to 6 weeks. So if I go into a hive twice a month, maybe they saw me twice, but they could have seen me once in the hive, and I'm an intruder. I'm not supposed to be there.
So
They don't know
so
me.
their life cycle is only about 2 months?
Month and a half is the
Really?
estimated longest, but that's in the summertime. In around August, September, those bees that are being born go through a genetic shift, and they store a lot more fat on them in preparation for the winter. So
That's crazy.
those summer bees are dying off, and the colony's population goes down. So in the peak of the summer, it'll be about 60,000 bees per hive. Toward the winter time, it's going down to 5 to 10,000. And that means less mouths to feed, because they don't want to run out of food. And it's just enough that they can generate enough heat to keep them surviving the winter. And then hopefully...
So
going to
if you
springtime.
did nothing with that bee, one of those bees in there, and just kept feeding it sugar syrup all day long, it would still die in a month and a half?
I've never done that. I don't know.
Oh.
But the way a bee's life is when they're born, they have a certain task where they're only cleaning up the comb. Then eventually they're taking care of other little bees. They're called nurse bees. Then there'll be an undertaker bee where they're cleaning the hive and taking out dead bees or debris.
Shut up.
Then
Subhanallah.
there'll be a guard bee where they're at the front entrance guarding the hive.
Wow.
At the end of their life, when all these resources and energy has been put into that bee, they've done a lot of service already. Now there'll be a forager bee at the end of their life where they can go risk their life trying to get resources to bring into the hive.
Subhanallah.
And that's
Oh,
what
so
what
at the
system,
end of their life
bro.
is when they go out, they roam out of the
Right.
hive to find pollen.
That's it. And nectar, yeah. So they've already, all the energy that has had to been invested into that bee development, they've already served their purpose. But now it's, okay, we'll take a chance with your life. You can go.
So you would say that the majority of its life is spent maintaining the hive?
Correct. Inside the hive, yeah. And serving the queen. And there's only one queen. Not all bees are serving the queen necessarily. But just making sure that the hive they're very clean creatures. In fact, in the wintertime when it's very cold, they won't defecate inside the hive. They'll hold it for months until it's a nice warm day out, like 40 degrees in February. They all go out on a cleansing flight, it's called, and they all go to the bathroom and come back, and you'll see little droplets of yellow spots in the snow.
Oh, that's great. It's a good reminder to tell the kids when you're on a road trip, like,
Yeah.
be like the bees.
Hold it, yeah.
Hold
be
it
like
in.
The bees, be like the bees, but I mean,
So what happened if the queen bee dies?
If the queen bee dies,
Yeah.
then
Does the hive just they abandon it?
Do they
or-
elect a new bee?
No.
Kamala Harris?
no, not quite.
who
Africanized,
came in undemocratically? But anyways, go ahead.
Africanized Kamala Harris?
Different system.
Yeah, go ahead. Go. Sorry.
Bees can take any female egg that's been laid and turn it into a queen bee.
Yeah.
They'll give it a lot of royal jelly, the stuff that they
They have to
produce.
groom it. That's what I heard. They have to groom the female bee.
Once it'll become a queen bee only in development. And those, like if you look at this stuff, the honeycomb, all those little spots are called cells. They'll store honey in that. The queen will lay eggs in that. This cell is the structure of all their entire home. So,
but there's only one bee, a queen bee at a time laying eggs, right?
Can you
Correct.
pass that over?
yeah.
Yeah, one of the
So
cool
the
things
other-
about
so
this,
the other-
one of the cool things about these things is that they're so symmetrical,
Yeah.
and it's just a miracle from Allah that how these
The perfect
each
hexagon
of
shape.
these cells
Yeah.
are. I don't know if they're hexagon, but they look whatever shape it is.
They're
These
kind of
like
circular and hexagonal at the
Is that,
same
are they?
time.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the best fit shape.
And you know what's
for-
funny is that they actually derive inspiration from that
Yeah.
in terms of packing material, like the honeycomb packing, like these packaging things they do to minimize impact and to absorb. Because I'm sure the hive has to be strong enough to withstand nature, right? I mean, because obviously there's a lot of things in nature that would attack it or damage it.
Well, in nature, they would have the structure of like a hollowed out stump or a hollowed out part of a tree. That the majority of that is what's going to protect them from the elements. But then the actual structure of the comb, to keep its integrity while there's a lot of movement, the bees also have their own weight. So 10,000 bees is roughly 2 pounds of weight. It has to be able to withstand that. Usually they'll build from top down, so it's hanging there within the tree, right? So it has to be able to be strong enough to hold those bees on, as well as what they store in it. The honey has weight. The pollen that they store in it has weight.
So when you take off a comb, a regular size one that you have, how much does it weigh? Let's say it comes off of its.
Well, what I do is I take off boxes, and those boxes have frames that the bees will build.
That's true.
They're
Yeah,
like
comb
trays,
box.
right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can just pull them out, and then
Right.
you can just extract what you need.
That's
from
it. So
Do you smoke them out too? Do you do the smoking thing?
we do two things. We smoke. That's more of like a, what do you call it? Those dogs that herd sheep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to kind of move them away so that you don't crush bees. Because when you start crushing bees, it sends off like an alarm pheromone,
Yeah.
and then they're going nuts.
Then
They're
they're-
boiling out of the hive.
they think they're-
That's why they say when you attack a bee, you have to when we were little, you have to get away from the area, or else all the bees will come at you after you.
I don't know about that.
That's the
But
rumor we used to hear when we were little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long
So
as you're not
funny.
near the hive. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you're near the hive and they can sense that.
It's like a natural alarm that's given off when they
Right.
get killed. Yeah.
Yeah, or when they sting. So when they sting, that stinger gives off a pheromone. They say it smells like bananas. I don't think so, but it does have an odor to it, a very distinct odor. And bees start, when they sense that, they get very agitated. Yeah.
Subhanallah. This,
Now, are there different benefits for?
So that's the
like-
smoking part.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
That's the smoking part. The other part is we use something called a fume board, and we'll spray inside that fume board. Like let's say I open the hive up. There's all the honey that we're going to harvest. I'll spray this particular chemical that kind of smells like thyme and almond oil. It's a very pleasant smell, but the bees can't stand it. So I'll put that on top of the hive, and the sunlight will heat that up. And as it's fuming, the bees start going down. So I can take those top boxes off.
It's
That's
more
beautiful.
natural
Beautiful.
way
Yeah.
of doing it rather than
wow.
Right.
Just
Instead
what
of
a
just being kind
science.
of barbaric and
Yeah.
crushing bees, there's some beekeepers that do it like that. They'll use leaf blowers to blow all the bees out.
Oh snap.
It gets the job done faster, but at the same time, there's so many other techniques that you can use to be more
Yeah.
gentle. Why not use that?
And the gentleness. I mean, look, Surah Al-Nahl. Now you start to understand how intricate this is. Allah named the surah after the bee. But when you were talking about the grooming or I'm just saying grooming because there was a podcast that I listened to specifically about the queen bee, and the science that goes into it is the grooming that takes place. And you stopped at the cell. You're showing us the cells, but from what I understand, what I recall is that the bees actually surround. There's a group of bees that surround this queen bee. If the old one is dying, they sense it and they start preparing the younger one, and they start giving it and giving it and giving it, and they make it much more healthier. And all of the healthy stuff goes to the queen bee because they're electing this new bee
Oh,
now
I see
because
what you're
they're prepping the old one to die. They actually no one is going to die,
They'll
which
know.
is crazy.
Yeah, they'll know when if a queen bee has a damaged wing or leg, they'll kill her.
Oh, they'll kill her.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll,
So this is crazy.
or if she starts laying improperly,
Huh.
or if there's a disease in the hive, they can tell. And what they'll do is they'll develop 10, 20, 30 new queens that will develop from female eggs. So any female egg can be turned into a queen. And it has a different cell structure. You see how if you hold that honeycomb up? Yeah, the cells are horizontal,
Okay.
I think you
right?
should hold
To the
it.
ground.
Your camera's better.
Yeah.
The cells are horizontal to the ground. So even let me show you this too. This is pretty cool. If you look at it like that,
Yeah.
you can see that there's a slight pitch.
Yeah.
I'm getting off topic here.
No, please,
But the
please.
bees build it on a slight angle so that honey when they're putting it in, gravity's pulling it in as opposed to it leaking out.
Oh, that's insane.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. Dude, you just blew my wig, man. Wow, you're right.
So it's not perfectly horizontal, but anyway, a queen bee, they'll make that cell vertical, and it's very long. It kind of looks like a peanut shape. Right? Because the queen bee develops and she's much larger
I don't think it's
than a female bee.
Why don't you focus it on that
Yeah.
one? There you go.
Do they lay? It's like her. Is that like a little home place, or she's only one of those cells where she lives in?
So she doesn't live there, but they develop there. And they'll develop, it takes from egg to a hatching queen, it'll take 16 days. So whenever the first queen hatches out, she'll go around the hive and kill off all those other developing queens so that she's the only one. If 2 or more come out at the same time, they'll fight to the death.
Wow.
And that last one will be the queen of that hive, and she's a virgin. She'll fly out, and there's different congregation points called drone congregation points where male bees will congregate. She'll fly through them and mate with them and return to the hive with all the good stuff. And now she can lay in the summertime up to 1,500 eggs a day.
1,500.
Yeah, a day.
Is that like
day.
is that like a one-time thing, or
Only once. They only do one mating flight, and that's it.
But they'll lay eggs 1,500 a day from that one mating flight?
Correct. They'll mate
Ya
from,
Allah.
I believe it's like 12 to 15 drones, and they'll have enough gametes stored that they can lay up to that many.
Ya Allah.
So how long
Wow.
does a queen live for? The oldest queen I've had is 3 years old, but supposedly they can last for 5-6 years.
So what's elongating, on the science level,
Mm-hmm.
what's elongating their life? Is it all the nutrients and everything? Is just they're constantly being pampered?
Allah knows. I don't know.
But I mean,
I'm
so
sure there's literature out there, but that's one of the reasons why, because they're fed so much royal jelly, that because they live, 3-4 years, as opposed to the worker bees are only living
1.5
4
months.
Yeah, that there must be something in this that we can consume that will be kind of like a fountain of youth.
And that's where the royal jelly marketing came in.
I'm sure, yeah.
so
Does
so
it do anything? Allah knows.
could it could just sit inside the hive all day long and just drop babies?
What's that?
Could it just be because they sit inside and don't do anything besides, make babies?
But that would be, on the scientific level, wouldn't that be so taxing though that it has to just constantly give birth?
I don't know if it's a human birth.
Yeah, I know.
They're just dropping little eggs.
It's crazy.
I mean, I would imagine the work would be because he's doing so much more, and they're probably exposed to much more potential to
elements.
die, right?
Yeah.
Like because you're just moving around as much. I just imagine the queen bee just sitting in one big cell, just popping out babies constantly.
No. It's kind of like an
Queen
ant
bees are
farm.
actually pretty busy, I think.
I think he's thinking more like an ant type
Yeah.
of thing, or like, what is it?
You
Bugs
just
Life?
sit there and just
Bugs
like,
Life.
The queen's just
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
popping out babies, and they're just taking, or the eggs, and
Yeah.
they're taking them. No, she moves around and puts an egg in every cell, and depending on the size of the cell, she'll lay either a female egg, or if it's a larger cell, she'll lay a male egg,
Oh wow.
which will develop into a male. So she can distinguish between
Ya
those
Allah,
sizes.
This
And then
is
quick
crazy.
question: do they now the cell that's theirs or that they're born into, is that where they return their honey to, or do they
No,
just?
no. That's a
okay.
great question. No,
Okay.
that's interesting. I've never had that question.
I'm
I
just
haven't
wondering
thought
because
about
you
It's
probably
Morty, dude. What do you think?
Yeah, sorry.
It's
It's
born
Morty.
there, and you probably just say, "Hey, this is my room,"
This is my room. This is my poster.
That's why he's Magic
This is
Mort.
my-
Yeah, go
This is my
ahead.
spot,
Yeah, no.
Okay,
In
all
fact, when bees start to hatch out of those cells, there's another pheromone that tells the queen that these cells are open, so she'll return to that area and lay eggs
okay.
again. Yeah.
Okay.
Bro, this is nothing short of miraculous.
So
This
it's
is
kind of like a
amazing.
puberty hormone. Hey, I'm big. I'm out of here.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is something else.
So as far as the benefits of these different types of honey that you have here, you got the honeycomb wax.
Mhm. You have the autumn,
you have the
summer.
and so are there different benefits to them for as far as
I-
treatment goes, and as far as different ailments?
I'm reserved to say anything just because this isn't like a monocrop. This is something at Darul Qasim where we had a talk on bees, and the kind of idea is, can a monocrop, one plant that produces something that's medicinal,
Yeah.
can we get honey from that and have that honey as having medicinal properties for
That specific plant.
that specific plant for this specific ailment? My honey is all wild honey, So it's collecting from all different types of plants. So does it have any specific medicinal property? No one knows.
So when people like market and they sell black seed honey, and it actually has a black seed flavor to it, are they just the bees that are feeding off of the black seed plants? Is that all that is?
It might have black seed mixed with it. So it's
black seed
honey
oil
and black
mixed
seed.
with the oil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people they were dropping the black seed into a spoonful
That
of
I
honey,
know.
eating
That part
it,
I
right?
know,
So
yeah.
they probably just mix the oil with the honey itself. Yeah, but maybe one of the homeopathic doctors would probably know sometimes seasonal honey might affect different things differently. Maybe could be.
Wow. And again, I know you mentioned this, but how long have you been doing this for? Like from the beginning to when did this all begin? What year did you start all this?
2019.
2019.
And why did you choose like honey over other types of farming? Because you like
originally-
farming, but you chose honey.
Well, this was more to go along with that therapy of hijama.
Okay.
And we started honeybee hijama. And I was like, well, we have hijama to offer people. I would like to have bees, but I have no idea how to keep them. So I took a small class, had 3 hives, and then I
just for the sake of the venom.
Just for the sake
honey,
of having
venom therapy.
That's it. But soon realized that not a lot of people know about it. So all of a sudden we just started getting all this honey, and we're like, oh my gosh! Like our first year we got 180 pounds, 60 pounds per hive.
Wow.
And we're like, well, this could be our business.
Wow,
So,
subhanallah.
yeah. So then we grew to 20 hives the following year, and then we've been consistent at 50. That's kind of my limit to be able to take care of myself. With my family support, of course.
Nice.
I don't want to get yelled at when I get home.
Was there like a specific like moment where you're like, honeybees is where I want to go? You know, like or was it just like out of the love of the Sunnah that you chose honey as your main interest in?
It was
farming?
more just to be able to provide that therapy for people as it becomes known. And
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, it seems this year in particular, it's really become known by more and more people. Otherwise, it'd be like someone here, someone there, not maybe once every month or two. But now it seems to be consistent where I'm getting 3, 4, 5 people a month.
So what
seeking
is
this out?
what is bee sting therapy? Is it only for autoimmune diseases, or what do people use it to treat?
The things that I've treated people with are people with MS,
Oh, really?
people that pains. It's only pain management.
Okay.
People with osteoarthritis, arthritis, or just any kind of chronic pain that just seems to be consistent and nothing's able to be done with
Okay.
other treatments.
So for like preventative and I guess just ongoing care, you probably would consume the honey, like for stuff that maybe you would want to. But like this is mainly for the bee sting is mainly for pain management.
That's it. So if it rids of someone's pain for a duration of time, and then
So
they
what
come back
happens if
and
you
get more
don't have
stings.
pain and you do get a bee sting? You just kind of
You're
you're
wasting
putting
your
yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
you get stung all the time. What
Yeah.
honestly, like, since you said up until now you get stung 100 times, or every season you get stung 100 times?
I'd say every week I'm getting stung a lot of times.
So
I'm
what
saying hundreds throughout
what
a season.
differences do you notice in your health since you get stung all the time?
I'm so jacked and strong. It's just no. Well, I don't have any aches and pains. I used to have kind of like gout-like symptoms in my foot. I intentionally stung myself there, and after 12 stings, it's been gone for the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh wow.
And I was at a point where it was difficult to walk any prolonged period of time. I'm like, I gotta sit. I was in so much pain. I'm like, I'm offering this to other people. Why don't I do it to myself? So after 12 stings, it's been gone.
And how do you make it sting you at that spot? You just hold it and just push it against it?
Yeah, I'll usually wet the bees. It just makes it easier to grab. I'll grab her by the wings, and then wherever there's pain, I just kind of push her there, and they'll just naturally sting.
So that's how you administer it. It has to be in the spot where there's pain.
Yeah, that's typically where I'll sting.
What about people like neurological stuff? Like, I mean, like
There's something. There's a guy that was kind of like the founder of bee sting therapy in the United States. His name's Charles Mraz, and in his book Health in the Honeybee, he talks about palpating, and there's different points, trigger points on the body, where you can feel where you have pain originating from, especially if you push. You're like, yeah, it's getting closer.
so more
yeah,
pain
that's
with
it.
here. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
kind of gauge where we have more pain
That's
than
it.
other areas. Okay, gotcha.
So you sting that point, and that's it. And then when I get stung, I immediately wipe the stinger out. But if somebody's getting treatment, we'll leave that little venom sac pumping the venom for like 5-10 minutes. to get the venom inside.
And how is it microscopic, or can you actually see the venom sac that's stuck to the
The venom
stinger?
sac kind of looks like a white pinhead. It's very tiny. And when you take it out, you'll see the stinger. It's thinner than a blade of hair or a string of hair. It's very, very thin.
And now I know bee sting therapy is also used to treat eczema or what's it called?
Psoriasis?
Psoriasis.
Is it you seen people help skin ailments and stuff too?
There's 2 people in my life that I've treated for skin cancer with a topical type of bee venom, which is sold by a company called Ferris Apiaries. They have a product called Bees in a Bottle, but it's bee venom with emu oil. You just put that on topically, and after 2 months, their spot of cancer was gone.
So
My father-in-law and my stepfather.
Oh, wow.
Really? That close to you?
Yeah. My mother-in-law has shingles, and she allowed me to sting her. There was no rift between us or anything, but I was...
How did it
stinger
do with the
helped
pain
her.
from shingles? Because shingles can be painful, right? So
Yeah, I've stung someone, and it didn't help them at all. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law
Subhanallah,
did
yeah.
found some relief. So that's why I never guarantee
Oh
or
yeah,
say
you
anything.
can. Yeah.
You can't.
it's just another
Shifas
way
from
to,
Allah.
It's
Yeah.
qadar Allah.
yeah, it's just another way to
Thank you.
possibly.
I was gonna say it's shifa from Allah. You had to throw in the qadr Allah thing. Thank you, sir.
Bring that back. Yeah.
Wow. So who's
Pretty interesting.
You guys got any more questions
Yeah,
for someone
yeah.
who wants to get stung?
Yeah, well, there's other treatments as well for with bee stings. At least I've heard of allergies as well.
Yeah, for people with bee stings, allergies that are allergic to bee stings, I believe the actual remedy for that is like kind of microdosing the actual bee venom, and building
Oh, okay.
someone up.
Gotcha.
Beekeepers will sometimes have to go through that, where all of a sudden one day they're just allergic to bees, and now they can't beekeep anymore. So now they have to start going in for treatment. for that.
Microdosing, yeah.
Oh, wow. So, well, why don't beekeepers just why don't you guys wear like the bee outfits that we see everyone, all the beekeepers
If you
wear
see
in the
if you see someone with a full outfit and it's all clean and white and beautiful,
No.
they're not a beekeeper, or they just bought a new suit because it
But
gets really dirty.
Yeah, but I'm also
Probably
like
get sticky and stuff too.
no,
Really
but
sticky.
also I would
Yeah.
think that like I mean if it's all the means you have to do, it might be a pain to keep putting that thing on and off. You know what I mean?
It's that it's hot, especially
Yeah.
in the in the midsummer heat. It's just so hot. You're lifting all these boxes, looking at bees. So you just kind of get used to it. At least I decided to, and just wear a hood. When you're
What is it made of, like a canvas or something?
kind
the
of,
outfit?
it's not like what is that, duck canvas? It's like thicker.
Okay.
It's not like that. It's a little bit thinner than that. And then there's Velcro on the wrist side and zippers for the hood. But that's just, you don't want to get stung in the face. That's it. Because it doesn't matter who you are. If you're stung in the face, it's going to swell up. So if I get stung in the hand, I have no problem. My wife, on the other hand, if she gets stung in the arm, her whole arm will be swollen up and sore for like 3-4 days.
I
Really?
see.
Is that,
I don't have
is,
an
that,
issue.
is that an allergy or is that just like normal?
I would say it's normal for her. She doesn't go into anaphylaxis or anything, but it's a very discomforting scenario for her. So
So let me talk about when Abdullah here gave me the shot, the sting. He gave it to me in 3 different points in my body. So after the first one, just like how I described it, it's incredible pain, but it's like a really sharp pain where you're not like screaming, but it's like really high in the pain index. But then so the second time I'm like, okay, let me time it. So I actually timed like how long do I actually feel the pain for. So it was actually 15 seconds.
Wow.
It was 15 seconds of really intense pain, but
Followed by what?
followed by euphoria. I felt euphoric right afterwards.
Really?
I felt incredibly like relaxed. I'm like, I wanted to chat. I just got incredibly more chatty with him. Just babbling away about
Was
everything.
it been addicted? Maybe he can get addicted
No,
eventually.
was it maybe the adrenaline that follows because like you're just you're in,
I don't know what it was, man. I'm just describing you to
Yeah.
what I felt right immediately afterwards. Because after that kind of a pain, you're just like, oh, you think like you'd be like really in pain or something, but it wasn't really painful.
But with
after
the pain
that.
still there, can you still kind of feel it or no?
Like if you touched it or something like that, or you could kind of gently feel it, but you're in
Endorphin rush probably, yeah.
endorphins and adrenaline going.
You got high. You basically got high.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, bee sting highs.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the new haram.
It's a new
It
shifa.
doesn't intoxicate you.
So after that, I did feel like a lot of relief in my shoulders, and I felt great for a long time. But the only downside was that the spots I got stung at were really itchy. So one of them was like at my shoulder blade area, like the most hardest spot you can scratch at, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd always get my son to like, oh, son, use your nails.
Yeah.
Get in there.
I've done that before.
How long was the issue for?
I would say mine was about 3 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah.
snap.
It wasn't like constantly itchy.
It's annoying.
It was just like a couple times a day it would get really itchy. I'm like, oh, you gotta scratch it right now. Get over here. Scratch.
We were get a back scratcher, the metal ones.
Yeah, I have a few of those too. You can never find those when you need them though.
Yeah.
I ordered him like a 5-pack of those. It's got
Yeah,
a little
he
hand on it too. And you go like this, you know. Yeah.
Wow. Have you ever done, I know like when you guys did it, you guys had a doctor and everybody there.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever done it and someone got like a crazy reaction to it? Like
Twice.
twice.
Oh, wow.
But that was on their like 100th sting. Like they had been stung so many times, and the issue was that, and it was my fault. They would be stung almost every other day, and then their duration of time that they would be able to go without pain would be, hey, it's been 2 weeks, I don't have any pain, can I come back and get it? Sure. Then it's a month. Well, now 4 months later that they weren't having any pain, and then they come back and say, hey, I want stings, it's starting to come back again. And I was continuing the old regiment that they had at 4 bees, for example. So instead of just restarting it with just 1 bee,
Yeah.
I was doing 4.
Oh, you
Now
went
they're
right to the
like,
4
hey,
instead of doing 1,
Right.
building up.
Right, instead of building it up. Right.
So did
then wait, hold on, what
do you
happened,
have
though?
to use like an EpiPen
They
or
felt
something?
nauseous. We didn't use an EpiPen, no.
Okay.
And they felt nauseous?
Nauseous, hot flashing, throwing up. But then they go to the hospital and they just give them Benadryl anyway.
Wow.
Oh, okay. The
You'll be fine.
antihistamine works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spoke to a pharmacist and they were like, Benadryl, I guess that class of drugs is
antihistamine.
better for that type. Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to like Zyrtec or something like that.
Got it. Yeah.
Claritin. Yeah.
Wow.
Because Benadryl is more fast acting. It's just pure, it's like antihistamine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Mort used to be a nurse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty dope. So as far as expansion is concerned, your farm right now is in the Midwest, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Are you just keeping it the way it is? You're content, or you just want to kind of expand it a little more?
No, my eventual goal is to have a larger farm operation, 5 to 10 acres, be able to have udhiya services.
Like you said in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
You ever think about
That's my
getting
goal.
camels?
No.
Shit.
No.
No.
There's a brothers in
Minnesota.
in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, the milk stuff, yeah.
They have a camel farm, Juba Farms,
Wow.
and I get camel milk from them. They ship it out every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Wow.
Phenomenal though.
Yeah.
Now they're gonna start doing camel meat now.
That's
butchering
legit.
it. Yeah.
That's legit.
But I guess you can, because camels are actually indigenous. They started in America. You know that, right?
I didn't know that.
Say it
Yeah, they
again?
migrated camels
Uh-huh.
originally, like thousands of years ago. They started here.
I didn't know
And then,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had no idea.
yeah.
I had no idea.
And they ended up moving across to different parts of the world. But the camels are originally in North America.
You gotta bring it
up.
back.
I swear, look it up.
That doesn't
What?
make sense. Wait,
Look it up.
If that's
Yeah, you
true,
gotta
not
do
that I'm not doubting
Yeah.
you, but
I'm doubting you. No, that's crazy.
Well,
That's
Sin
crazy.
can look it
I'd
up.
bring
Yeah,
it
I'm
back.
looking it up.
Yeah.
No, Mort is usually just confident of something. He's done the research.
How much does a
He's
camel cost?
Depends. I mean, I think anywhere from like $500-$600 to like depending on. I mean, the she camels are worth more because they produce milk. But
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, when
But
I was in
the- but
Woody
the
Tanya, I
milk-
went to a camel
Wow,
auction.
she's right.
Camel.
Camels
Really?
originated from North America millions of years ago. The earliest camel ancestors appeared around 45 million years ago during the
45 million years ago.
Eocene epoch. These ancient camels, known as Protylopus, were small rabbit-sized creatures that roamed the forest,
Oh
which
my
is now
goodness.
now North America.
Yeah. So you have alpacas,
The migration
llamas,
to other
yeah.
continents happened about 3 million years ago in the Pliocene epoch, and they migrated across the Bering Strait and went into Alaska and then into Asia, and they started
Then you
becoming extinct in North America about 10,000 years ago. So not too long ago.
Wow,
10,000
10,000 years
Yeah,
ago?
but you can. But point being is they can survive in this habitat if you bring them here, right? So they can. People think they have to be in the hot. That's not necessarily true. They can be in cold, depending on what type of camels
I
you
didn't
have.
know that.
They're like
Yeah.
they're like a Toyota Camry. They're
Yeah.
just
They go
everywhere.
Actually,
They
you should say
survive.
Toyota Helix. Like
Yeah,
that,
the
that
Helix.
truck is
Yeah, but people don't know the Helix.
yeah, but that's the truck you see.
It's
when
like
you
a
go to the Middle
Forerunner
East.
/ Land
Yeah,
Cruiser.
it goes anywhere, it lives forever, never dies, easy to fix.
A million miles.
Doesn't require much to maintain.
Yeah.
But I mean, so they have this camel farm now, and apparently camel milk has immense benefits to, and so, hey, if you can get a camel and just get camel milk from them,
Yeah. A lot of the Muslim grocery stores now have it. Mediterranean has it.
Yeah, have frozen. Yeah.
and it's phenomenal. Like, I mean, this stuff is it's great for your gut health. It's a strong source of
No, I remember you
protein.
gave us a container too. I remember.
Oh yeah,
that.
we tried it here. Yeah. But it's really good for like insulin spikes. It kills it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
I
a
was reading
natural
up on
insulin.
that. I was
So you
reading
know
up
how
on that.
insulin, you have to, people who become, like, have low tolerance for sugar and stuff like this, they have to give them, if they become like type 2 or type 1, severely diabetic, they have to give them insulin shots, right? Because your body can't naturally, you can't ingest insulin, right? Your body produces insulin as a hormone from the pancreas. So that's why they have to get a shot, because you can't take it, you can't just consume it and absorb insulin from your your internal, your organs, right, or your intestine. So but this camel milk is an insulin-like property, so people who drink it, it reduces the effect of it. In simple terms, it eats up all the sugar in the body. So they did a correlated study where people, like, well, especially in the Middle East and places like that, their diet used to have a lot of camel milk. And even though they would eat breads and all the stuff, they were generally okay, right? But lately there's been a spike in diabetes, like an epidemic, right? All over the
Everywhere in
Middle
the
East,
world,
especially other areas, and in India as well too. So what prompted them to do the study on this was that there's a particular region in India which is called Rajasthan, and they're known for the camel. They only drink camel
It's
milk.
basically like desert of India.
Yeah, and the rest of India has very high diabetes, like very common. The 3 factors, right? Hypertension, hypercholesteremia, like high cholesterol, and high blood sugar. These are like the common 3,
Is
right?
this like type 1 or type 2? Is it type 1 or type 2?
Type 2. So type 1 is usually something you're born with, meaning your pancreas can't produce. And type 2 is usually developed, meaning through either by being sedentary or bad diet, whatever, right? But most popular form of diabetes is type 2 in the world, right? It's usually, I don't want to say reversible, but very avoidable and treatable, right? Meaning if you can, by diet and exercise, right? But coming back to the diet part, this is where they do it. And so diabetes is virtually non-existent in Rajasthan. But every other place in India has like super high diabetes rates, right? So like, what's different about their diet? And they started researching, well, they drink camel milk. That's the only difference. Otherwise, they eat the same kinds of food, everything else. They have the same high rice, diet, biryani, all that stuff, vegetables, oil, ghee, roti, whatever, all that stuff they eat, right? And why are they not getting diabetes? They have the same genetics, right? Why are they not getting it? It's camel milk. And they did a study on it where they put, this was on the Middle East, where they had people that were on insulin and oral medication for diabetes. And within the 1 week, they would consume 8 milligrams or 8 grams of, or 8 grams of 8 ounces, of camel milk every day in the morning. I take medicine. And by the second week, they were completely off of insulin. And by the end of the month, they were off of oral medication for diabetes.
SubhanAllah. Wow.
So it has like this insulin-like property that helps you break down the excess sugars and prevents your body from having those insulin spikes, which then leads to obesity, extra body fat, lower testosterone, all that stuff. If you're working out, right, and bodybuilders, they always say the one thing you want to control is insulin spikes. That's why they'll inject themselves with insulin, because they don't want it to spike, which throws off their metabolism and kills muscle, right? So this is kind of like that whole thing. So
that's kind of crazy.
Does that do that pre-absorption or post?
It's,
you know what I'm saying? Like, is it something in the camel milk that is
helping
break down those
so
sugars?
insulin breaks down and absorbs the sugar. It helps you excrete it, right? That's what the milk actually does. There's a component within camel milk that mimics insulin and breaks down the excess sugar.
But I think
in the
you're
bloodstream.
saying that you have it before your meal or after a meal, or does it matter?
No, what I'm asking is because insulin lowers your glucose levels in your blood.
This is exactly what it does.
So what I'm asking is it something that does it after the whatever that nutrient is, does it imitate what insulin does?
Sure. Yep.
Right?
It does.
Or does it do something to the sugars before? Like if you were to mix sugar in camel milk, does it break down like polysaccharides?
So mixing sugar and camel milk, I'm not sure about if it would break down the sugar there, but I think what happens is that it functions like insulin in the body. So if you have enough of it, it'll help you process and break down glucose.
That's pretty
and that's
cool.
what it does. Yeah. So you can actually consume it without getting injectables, and you can, obviously.
So that way, if you have high sugar, the doctor tells you not to have honey. Maybe you could talk to another
Actually,
doctor.
it's fine in a sense that different sugars will increase insulin. So like if you were to have honey, there's more fructose in it than just glucose.
So when you talk about diabetes and stuff, you talk about
glycemic index.
Glycemic index and insulin spike. So different foods have different glycemic indexes.
Yeah.
So although it may contain sugar, or what they call sugar in general, right, it may not be high on the glycemic index.
For example, dates are very high in sugar, but they don't cause insulin spikes like regular
Like
sugar.
Right,
white table
depending
sugar,
on the
table
certain
sugar,
types
yeah.
of dates and how you eat them, right, and like so and your body type. So because really, when you are diabetic or you have trouble with this, right, everybody's body is different. So your body will have to. Everyone's body can react differently to different foods.
Yeah.
Someone could eat like grains and be okay with that. It'll process for a longer time and they'll be low on the glycemic index. Their insulin won't spike. Some people just don't tolerate it. It depends on your body. A lot of it is, it's almost kind of like you would consider to be an autoimmune for some people, where you're not either producing enough insulin or whatever it may be. So it really depends on your body chemistry, the other hormones that are there, how much you move. It's dependent on so many things. Like I'll give you an example. Most people can avoid getting type 2 or whatever just by walking 10 minutes after eating. Just a simple walk, right? But so it could be something as simple as that. How much are you moving? How much are you eating?
10
all
minutes
that kind
of ice cream after.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Walk
if you
20 minutes.
camel milk, or camel would be phenomenal. Getting camels in here, because I have a feeling that it's gonna blow up in America, because the place I used to order from before wasn't not even a Muslim place. It was in California. They were the only one I knew of. They had desert farms, and they were bottling camel milk. And camel milk is, I don't know if it's the same like bees, but different seasons, and especially when the mother is pregnant, is different potency for the milk. So they also make kefir, which is like the thick, kind of, it's more nutritious.
Yeah.
But different seasons produce different benefits of camel milk, like different more potent camel milk.
Is that
So-
if they're eating from different plants growing? You know what I'm saying?
I think it has to do with when they're pregnant or not.
Okay.
And I think as a mother being pregnant, it releases much more hormones, right, to feed the young and to, for that, and so that is more potent in that sense, right? I don't know if
I think Abdullah, you're gonna have to team up with somebody and talk to them about some camel milk, bro.
yeah.
One-stop shop camel milk and honey at the same place.
And it got to a point where they had such a high demand that they couldn't ship out like regular camel milk. It's hard to do that, right? Like bottles, freeze it. That they were actually like making camel milk powder, where people just buy the powder and they would just, and that's not as great, obviously, if you're gonna hydrate milk, it's not gonna be as potent as it would be from, but yeah, I mean, so maybe something to consider if you can ever get your hands on a camel, and maybe talk to the brothers at Juba Farms and say, hey man, I'm trying to do some camels in
On Illinois.
Illinois.
That'd be awesome.
If one of the camels got loose, like, what the heck is that? How did that get here?
That'd be crazy.
You know what's crazy about this though? Sorry, side. Australia has a lot of feral camels, and they're trying to kill them. You know how they got there, right?
No.
So this is, that, right? Sam? How they got there?
No.
Oh, so when the British came to Australia and they wanted to explore the outback,
So was the British.
yeah, damn British, but they realized their horses couldn't tolerate the journey. It's a rough terrain. It's brutal out there, the desert, the outback, right? It's can't handle it. The horses just would die. So they were already in parts of Asia and Afghanistan, so they brought Indian and Afghan cameleers. They literally put camels on ships and brought them to Australia, and they would have these, and brought Afghanis and Indians and Pakistani, at that time Indians, whatever, and they would bring them there, and they would ride these camels and would transport goods and explore the outback. And then eventually the advent of trains came, and they laid down train tracks and stuff like this. The usage of camels having to transport goods to these outposts, they didn't need them anymore. So they just left all these camels out there, and they just started breeding and growing, and there's a bunch of feral camels in Australia.
You know, just put aside the whole colonizing aspect of British. They were incredibly resourceful. Like they knew how brutal the Australian outback is, and for those who don't know, the middle of Australia is largely empty. It's not very inhabitable. There's not a whole lot of water sources. So most of the towns in Australia are coastal regions, and they call it Sahel, right, in Arabic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Sahel,
so these coastal regions are primarily where people have settled, and the British just know, like, okay, well, who is always traveling in these uninhabitable regions? Oh, Arabs. What did they use? Camels. Let's get some camels, you know?
Yeah.
And they've been able to kind of manage all these, like, vast areas of the empire through having knowledge of, like, different civilizations and how they survive in different climates, and just having a very, very good knowledge of the resources that are available and how to apply them in different situations.
Yeah.
So it was also by trial and error, right? Like they originally brought all the horses there and they died, right? And like, we can't do this anymore, right? So but then to his point, they realized, well, what part of our empire has a similar terrain? Yeah. And they probably thought,
Europeans get a bad rep. They were actually very innovative.
No,
right?
I always credit, despite all, all the brutality of colonization and stuff. We all know that. We don't have to harp on any of that, but there is a level of organizational capabilities that you have to understand from the Europeans. It's not that necessarily that there were incredibly they have a higher IQ like some of the white supremacists try to say.
I think they do, but yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I think white people are the best people. But
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Mashallah.
White flower.
It's all the greatest humans combined in one.
No, but
but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
You know what's
sorry,
really...
so what was I saying?
So you were saying that
about the organization and how they were able to utilize...
Yeah, so you were saying that genetically they're not
like
higher IQ, but...
If you look at how they organize, even in businesses, right? Yeah. They take ideas from Japan regarding Kaizen or continuous improvement and incorporate these like cultural practices that were like time immemorial practices of different civilizations, and they're like, let's make money out of this. Yeah. And they incorporated this word that's like this ancient Japanese like.
What do you think about this argument?
No, but they also hold on. Before that, it's not just they implement it; they also improved upon it. Yeah. Right. They did. They adapted it, and they try to find a way to make it more relevant to what they need. Right. So it wasn't just like they weren't just copying. Right. Yeah. It was borrowing and then also adding to it. But before we move to this whole European thing, just real quickly. The other interesting thing about this is about these cameleers that went to Australia is that in these outbacks there are entire populations of like mix of whites and like Afghans and Indians or whatever you call them, but who are originally Muslims, but they have no idea what Islam is. They have a mosque there, my granddaddy would pray here and he would do this stuff. Like my great granddad, he would pictures, but they have structures there, but they still have elements of Islam, but they're not Muslim. They don't really know what it is.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, it's still out there.
I've
like
seen
they have,
it,
it's crazy.
That is crazy. No, I mean, look, the trial and error, the ingenuity, all people have done that. But the interesting take, I'm like half serious and half joking when I say this to people, just to like get a rise out of them. When they talk about Christopher Columbus and they're living in the luxury of America, and like it's been discovered, and they're living, but they're completely hating on Christopher Columbus and all this. Yeah, some of the stuff was brutal, but you're living in like the best country in the world ever. Based on like, you want to undo all of that. Like, how do you want to live after this then, right? Yeah. And they get really angry when I talk to them about that, because it's something to consider. Yeah, colonization can be brutal, right? But the way you're living right now,
recognizing the truth of how you got to where you were doesn't mean that you want to undo everything.
Exactly.
Like I know, like we know, like I was just debating the other day on Twitter with some white supremacist type people. They call themselves America First, but they're really just saying like how great white people were to the whole world. And it was Matt Walsh. Yeah, it was under Matt Walsh's thread. He was talking about how great colonialism was to the world, and I'm like, well, did you ask that to the North American indigenous tribes, where it's recorded over 60 million, or it's actually like 55 million Native Americans have been killed across North and South America? Yeah. 55 million. That's like the greatest genocide in history. Yeah. There's no other, not even the Genghis Khans and Hitler. You combine all those guys together, all the bad, crazy Stalin and he killed Stalin
20
killed like 10 million or
20,
20 million.
yeah.
I
World
can't-
War II had 60 million people in total.
No, we're just talking about like the
Yeah.
brutality of
Right, but I'm saying that's all of World War II.
Yeah.
This is just one group of people.
Yeah.
So
Like, yeah.
60 million or 55 million indigenous people of North and South America. You're saying that you didn't do your benefit to the world. Okay, like then they're like, okay, well, look what they would have been without us. Well, what would they have been?
Alive.
Like, we don't know. They would have been alive, right? Like I was saying, like
Look, for a lot of people, the ends justify the
then
means.
they're like at the end, they're like, oh well, then why don't you just leave? I'm like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. I found purpose in trying to leave the world a better place. I've realized that I've been born into a very a situation where I can help people with the resources that I have, and I want to leave the world a better
but
place. How about that for a purpose in life instead of dunking on other people and saying that
my question
your life
would be,
sucks. And
my question
we're
would be,
we're the world's greatest gift.
yeah.
Like,
But my question would be though, how would me leaving solve what you did? Like what if that?
They don't like that you're complaining about your
Yeah, but I'm
surroundings.
saying, hold on, I get that, but I'm saying if you don't like me complaining, but how does me leaving? I can still complain in another place too. I mean, it's not just me that feels that way.
It's an oversimplistic way of
So my
thinking.
point being is that I think there has to be a balance, right? Like, and I think the way they view things is that the ends justifies the means,
Yeah.
right? Meaning that, hey, you know what, we got here.
Yeah.
You know what, we're here, we're now, and I think to a certain degree, I would say this. In those times, it was a different era, right? Meaning that understandings of empires and nations and peoples were different, right? I think when you see that happening today, it becomes appalling because they collectively got together under the League of Nations and United Nations and said, hey, you know what we did in the past was actually wrong. We can't just take people's land, and we can't just, create empires and invade and say, too bad you lost it. We have to have some normacy here. We have to have some, decorum
Civility.
and some morality here, right? And then so by their own admission, whether they say it or not, this is why you have this body, right? Like the United Nations and these Geneva Convention laws and all this, because they recognize the brutality that it took to develop these nations, right? And they want to prevent that in the future. Otherwise, what they're going to say is, if they didn't do that, well, then what did Hamas do that was wrong,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're just trying to conquer a place, just
Yeah.
like everybody else did, right?
Exactly.
So what would be wrong?
That's the next point. Yeah.
And so the idea is that, but the reality is now this is where it's getting dumped on its head now, because you accept this for certain people and you don't accept for others.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
An example, case in point, is Russia and Ukraine versus Palestine and Israel.
Yeah.
Right? Like one side is totally justifiable. We make every excuse in the world. And the other side is like absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
Right? No way. We're a civilized world. We can't do this, right?
Mm.
So I think what happened to Sim's point, and my point being is that they have recognized their own brutality.
Yeah.
And that's why we have organizations now. So I think recognizing that doesn't mean that you are unappreciative of what
Of
you
course.
have.
Yeah.
It just means that we're aware and that we don't want to repeat that same mistake again.
Yeah, and I think, look, a lot of it has to do with a very capitalistic worldview. Is everything they say has to do with the ends justify the means, whether they like to say it or not. Like, you're living this amazing thing. This sacrifice had to be made. I heard people say it like that before too. This sacrifice had to be made in order for us to afford all these luxuries and stuff. So all that stuff is pretty evil in a sense. But one thing that I like, I mean, just when I get to spark some conversation, is when you're siding with somebody, like if you have like three people, right? You have me, you have this America First dude, and you have this Muslim guy, for instance, right? And you talk about the luxuries that were afforded because a sacrifice has to take place. When somebody agrees that a sacrifice that big has to take place to be afforded as contemporary luxuries, then you know where their mindset is, right? They can talk about morality all they want, but their morals are nothing, because they know that if they're on the right side, they can make certain sacrifices of innocent human beings in order for change to take place, because they're the ones making the decisions, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think the Palestine and the Russia thing is a great example, but nonetheless, I know we're here to talk about. I mean, this generally happens on the podcast. We can go off on some nice, healthy tangents. But before we conclude, can we talk a little bit about contemporary politics, because we're kind of here right now?
For what?
about the upcoming elections and stuff like that. And
Let's save that for tomorrow's show.
okay,
I just wanted to kind of close things off about
exactly.
how
yes.
normal, or at least where beekeeping has gone from 1,000 years ago to now. Like, is there any new developments or ways to maximize production of honey?
Making it more manageable and easier. So instead of having to climb a mountain or go in a tree and, try to get some honey from that colony, it's now in those different types of constructed things. Like if you've seen a beehive, there's different types of beehive.
Yeah.
The type that I use is called the Langstroth hive. Couldn't tell you the exact history about it, but I believe in the early 1900s, this guy, so-and-so Langstroth, designed a beehive where it's a box, and then you have these wooden frames that hold what the honeycomb is, and those have certain spacing that he observed naturally occurring in a hive, where he would see comb built with a certain amount of space in between. So he made those wooden frames so that the bees could fit in through it, and it imitates what a real hive would be.
So they just build
So they build inside their comb inside that.
from
And so
top down and
it's-
in these little frames, right?
Right. And now because I have boxes, I can separate that and take what I need and keep what I want to keep and manage it easier. So I've seen something on YouTube. It's like now there's an automated beehive type of thing in China or something where it's all robotic. They manage it, the weight and everything else. If that's the future, Allah knows, but it kind of becomes
I think
dehumanized.
I think it would be fair to say that conceptually, like there hasn't been any major innovation in the last probably 100 years, 200 years.
The biggest innovation as of late has been something called the flow hive. Have you seen it?
No.
Not to throw shade on them or anything, but they make it seem like all you have to do is put the bees in and you have honey on tap. You just turn this tap and you have honey.
Wow.
You still have to learn a lot on how to manage a colony of bees and when to take care of them, how to take care of them, when to feed them, when not to feed them. There's still quite a bit that has to be learned than just turning a little knob and getting honey on
So I
tap.
can't imagine. So one quick question on that note, right? So I'm assuming this is like some kind of.
show the listeners. I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you can pull it up a lot. So I'm assuming the self-enclosure where you have a tap, it's meant to be like it's one for all
There's a
solution,
flow
right?
hive. Yeah.
But my question is like, do they have to come out to like poop and pee or something like?
They do anyway when they go out of the entrance of a hive.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Okay.
would be called a hive. The colony is the bees themselves. It's called a colony. They live inside a beehive, whatever they make that structure in, whether it be a tree, a box like this that we made, or the mountains. So
if you put something like that just out on the lawn, right?
Yep.
Bees won't just come inside of it. You'd have to throw bees in.
So
there,
here
right?
it is, the new Flowhive 2 Plus, packed with all the features from our best-selling Flowhive 2,
Can you pause that?
and with
Yeah.
additional features that
yeah, so if you look at
to ensure
this hive, for example,
Yeah. To shut
bees
everyone.
will be in the bottom box. So there's two boxes there and a roof, a fancy roof. In the bottom box, that's called the brood chamber. That's where the queen is. She's laying her eggs, right? And then it looks to me on this one that there's something called a queen excluder. It's right in between those two boxes where it's kind of like
ready for the you convention directly from
I want to kind of see a better picture of it.
Okay.
It's-
Yeah, you see that slit, that metal thing in between?
Yeah.
Right at the bottom there? Yeah. So if you look, are you able to Google things?
Yeah.
So if you type in queen excluder,
Okay.
queen excluder. And if any of you listening are a beekeeper, and some people will call these honey excluders because they believe that you don't get as much honey using them.
This thing?
Yeah. So that's completely false. I've proven that time and time again in the last 6 years.
This thing right
Yeah.
here.
So the average amount of honey in Illinois is about 65 pounds per hive. Alhamdulillah, we've averaged about 120, 130 pounds a hive
Oh wow.
I don't know.
using queen excluders. So
So what does the queen excluder do?
what the queen excluder does, if you look, there's a bunch of lines, like metal
Can
bars.
you bring that back up on the screen, Sam, if you don't mind?
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Yeah, not the bigger ones, but those thinner lines that are running left to right.
Yeah.
There's enough space in there for those worker bees, the female bees, to get through. So they can do whatever they have to do in the brood chamber, but they can also go up through that and store their honey, store things. But it's too small for the queen to get through. So she can't go up there and lay her eggs. So for managing a hive purpose, I know that the queen is only in this box. So if I'm looking for a disease or an issue with the queen, I only have to check that box. Everything else is just for honey storage.
Do you isolate her from the rest?
The rest of the hive.
Yeah.
There's times like I have a couple hives now where she got past the queen excluder and she's up somewhere lost in a big tower of boxes. Another thing with the flow hive, I don't know enough about what they sell, but that apparatus, in my opinion, it's not large enough for the amount of bees that a colony has. At sometimes there's some of my hives are taller than I am. There's just so many boxes to accommodate the population.
Wait, hold on, dude. How do you know where the bee, like, it's not there anymore? The queen bee.
You won't have eggs.
So do you have to end up looking for it, or you just wait for it to
You
die?
really
And
just
then-
have to look for eggs. If you see eggs, and a bee is in its egg form for 3 days. So if you have eggs, you've had a queen there at least within the last 3 days. So you can move on.
So that's amazing. But when it leaves, when it, like you said, escaped up and somewhere up in the higher,
You'll see eggs up there or developing larvae where they're not supposed to be. So that's how you'll know, like, oh, she got past the queen excluder.
okay, and is that detrimental to the hive or no?
No, it's just more difficult to manage. It also means that, for me, more bees are getting killed, especially developing bees.
So this is what the
Yeah,
eggs look
those are eggs. So if you see eggs in a hive, hopefully in the brood chamber,
Subhanallah, that is something else, dude.
that means you got a queen. So now let's say I open a hive and I don't see eggs. That could be a problem. Those are larvae. And you see there, if you could go back up a little bit, that white creamy stuff, that's
Yeah.
called worker jelly. So all these will be female bees from the looks of it. And female bees do everything for the hive. I talked about this at Darul Qasim when I did a video for them. Worker bees are all female. I should say all the female bees are worker bees. They're the ones that clean the hive, guard the hive, sting, go forage. The male bees are the ones that just develop so that they can mate with a queen.
They only have one purpose.
That's it. I have some theories as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them that way as well. One is, I don't think you would have heard of it, but have you heard of varroa mite?
No.
They're a type of, almost like a flea for bees. And they're the biggest issue that are facing bees globally right now. Can you type in varroa mite?
VER?
VAR.
VAR?
Yeah. So these mites,
Varroa mite.
they don't kill the bees per se, but they are a vector that transfer viruses and different pathogens
This is crazy.
from bee to bee to bee. This thing.
Ooh, this thing is scary.
Yeah.
Ew.
Scary looking.
So they'll crawl and they'll feed on the fat.
And they're
of
probably
the
much
bees.
smaller than the bee too.
Yeah, like if you look at the bee there, it's just a little disc on the bee.
Wow.
And you can see them on there. But those mites, they'll reproduce inside. They'll go in that little cell with the larva, and before the bees cap it, a female one will, not a virgin, I'll say an impregnated varroa mite will go in there, and then the bees cap it. So then they'll start feeding on the larva, and she'll lay, I believe the life cycle something like 4 eggs, something like that, or 4 larvae will develop from her. One male, the first one's male, and the other 3 are female, something like this. That male will mate with those 3 females. So then when that bee hatches out, then you now have additional impregnated, or what would you call it?
Additional.
You have varroa mites, but they're not virgins.
Okay.
These females are coming out inoculated.
Yeah.
What's the term I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then that just spreads and spreads, and as they feed on bees, then they'll go to one bee to the next. They start transferring those viruses that affect different bees.
Look at the name,
Yeah.
Varroa Destructor.
Yep.
That's the scientific name.
Now they'll ride, like let's say we have a colony. The female bees will go in and out of just their colony primarily, but the male bees, the drones, the female guardian bees will allow any drones in. So they'll ride on drone bees and then go into any hive, and that's how that spreads from colony to colony.
And this is a pandemic right now, basically.
Global. Yeah, it's the biggest threat to.
So is that when they say the pollination? This is one of the biggest pollination. Like there's various issues that are happening
Here's
with
an
big bees and
illustration of what he
pollination.
was talking about.
Yeah, that's it. So queen lays an egg. There's the egg developing. So now you have the worker bee feeding it in the larval stage. You have one that crawls in, and as that larva starts to develop, she'll eat on the fat of that larva, or developing pupa. She'll give birth to. Is there anything on this about how many? But I know it's something like one male and the others are female, and that male will mate with the other females, the sisters.
Wow, and all this happens.
Yeah.
Jeez. So how much has this affected your bee farming?
2 to 3 mated daughters can be produced.
2 to 3 mated daughters.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I mated. That's the term I was saying.
So
It's a simple term.
so
Like
how
the
much
opposite
has-
of virgin. Inoculated?
How much has this affected your?
Well,
Can you spot them, and can you like peel them off?
you could see them. Or like, let's say if the queen got up past that queen excluder, and now you have in between boxes, they'll make
Yeah.
a bunch of larger cells, and that's where the queen will lay drones. So when you break those boxes apart, it just rips all those cells apart, and you can see pupa and larva all exposed, but you also see those varroa mite as well. So has it affected my operation? It's hard to say. I do have roughly 50 to 60% of my hives survive the winter. But what made them survive was it was a strong colony. Whereas if it's a weaker colony and they're susceptible to diseases that are being passed around by the varroa mite, it weakens them even more and they don't survive the winter.
Wow.
Now, can you like? I know like you handle bees with your hand. Are you able to like peel it off that varroa mite? If you
There's
see
thousands.
Oh, there's.
You can pick one and do nothing.
But will it kill the bee too? Will it like injure it when you peel it off?
No, they're usually crawling all around on the bee.
I see.
It's amazing. I've held a bee before and with tweezers tried to take one off, but when you're going at this angle, it'll go on the other side. And you try this.
Oh, sneaky little budmush.
It's wild. If you look at that shape, they go under the plates.
And the
that
bee can't do anything about it.
There are some type of hygienic properties. If you look at that, on the abdomen, that largest part of the back of the bee, there's like plates.
Yeah.
So what the varroa mite does is it digs in between those.
I see.
And that's that little red disc shape that they have slips in there perfectly. It's something that maybe you can answer. I've always wondered, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create, I don't want to call it parasites, but in a way this is kind of like a parasite, or any type of host-parasite relationship, because what is the benefit of having such a creature that I would imagine serves the bee no purpose? The only thing I can think of is if they're eating the fat on the bee is going to be more hungry, and they're going to aggressively search for nectar even more. So they're bringing in more to the hive, and that's for human consumption. Allah knows.
Yeah.
But what is, that's only the bees, but in general, what is...
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think benefit far surpasses, the concept of benefit far surpasses what something can do for us and what it can't do for us. That's the first thing. Benefit generally is, like, if you think about why Allah creates, just to say diseases, and just to talk about it more on a more macro level, diseases, what can be cured and what can't be cured. A lot of the things are going to hinder upon us and be bad for us, but they're only created for us to reflect that Allah is our creator. That's it.
Or
right?
to give us, free us of sin.
Yes, if we're physically affected by something. Now, if we see, like on a more micro level, that these destroyers, what are they called again?
Varroa mite.
Varroa mite destructors. Yeah, they're affecting bees. Now, for you or somebody who's like talking about there's this pandemic or epidemic that's occurring, viruses in bees, it makes your brain think on a very different level all of a sudden, because now what happens to us, you're bringing that upon this whole industry that human beings have to survive with pollination and all that kind of stuff, right? And the benefit, the reason I'm mentioning this is the benefit is not only, it doesn't have to do with the bees all the time, or it has to do with the human beings looking at what's actually happening to their world and your tawakkul on Allah, and because this can affect a lot of it all comes back to us as human beings. Everything is created for our benefit that Allah gives us, right? Whether all the bees have to go or they don't go. The bees themselves, that's why I mentioned Surah Al-Nahl. The Nahl and this bee, if you think about it, the only reason why it's created is because Allah gave us another avenue to find Allah. That's all it is. Bees, that's all it is. There's nothing else. That we benefit from it and we drink from it, that all follows the classification of Allah's signs. That's all it is. So whatever happens to Allah's signs, that's his business. And he does to his signs whatever he wants. But what happens to his signs are also a sign for us. That's all it is. Everything, the celestial bodies, I know you didn't ask about this, celestial bodies, the kids that we give birth to, the processes that we go through are all down to the signs of Allah. That's it. Nothing else. Because everything else is going to vanish.
To acknowledge.
Everything else is going to vanish.
Okay.
at the end, you know?
Planet Earth could be the varroa mite for
Hmm?
the Milky Way.
I love when he opens his eyes and mentions the theory.
No,
Like,
I'm just saying, look, I'm just saying. So
do you see how he opened his eyes when you mentioned that theory?
No, I'm just thinking like,
I love it.
That question that he poses is a very, very profound question, and something that I've given a lot of thought to over the years. And you learn that there's a balance, or like almost a duality in the universe, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in terms of there's life, and then there's being an anti-life, but with viruses and bacteria tearing apart
Life and death, yeah.
you know. But it's like this dual nature of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything, from the night to the day, and to life and the absence of life, and the heat and then the cold, and there's shade in the middle as well, and there's good and bad, and things like the varroa mite, and you think about, well, there's going to be, I'm sure, a microscopic organism that's smaller than the varroa mite, that's sitting on top of the varroa mite, that's causing it some kind of weakness.
Yeah.
There's
Honestly,
always,
if someone could find this, they'd be a billionaire.
right? So, but
If they can control varroa mite populations with something,
that's right. You just hit the nail on the head. And this is the example I like to give people is, what benefit did the planet Earth get from landing on the moon? Let's just say the landing on the moon was real. Put aside the conspiracy theories for a second, and say they landed on the moon. The amount of effort, the technological advancements, when you set a goal like that, right? There's no actual benefit that what they knew
Standing
of,
on the moon did, yeah.
And even from as a result of doing it, they didn't gain any kind of material that was on the moon that wasn't already available on Earth.
Yeah.
There was nothing. Everything was.
We got
same.
moon rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that
That's
stuff.
something that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Though.
all the stuff was all the base elements were there. There was no unknown element off the not existing on the periodic table of elements that was found on moon. There was no advantage gained in that respect, right? So when you have these kind of situations, whether it's a varroa mite or any kind of bacteria or parasites, it's also a vehicle for human innovation.
Yeah.
To tackle and progress intellectually and build on technologically, and try to find a solution for it. Allows us to get together and put our minds together to solve a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe we may not solve the problem with the varroa mite, but we may. Sometimes scientists are tackling a problem for the varroa mite, and they find the cure to cancer.
If you can pause right there, what you said was something very profound. I'll tell you why. Look, Allah summarized this in Surah Al-Mulk. الذي خلق الموت والحياة. Allah created. You talked about life and death. This anti thing to
duality.
This duality that Allah created. الذي خلق الموت, death. He talks about death first, which doesn't come first. It comes last. You have to have life to have death, right? خلق الموت, because that's the epitome, and that's what people fear the most, and that's what is actually going to rein us back. So that's one of the wisdoms of death being mentioned first. خلق الموت والحياة, and hayat, the other part of the duality. And what's in the middle? ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا, so that he can test you to see which one of you are best in your actions, right? But what you just mentioned is what a discovery can be made, and he just said someone can make $1 billion off of that, right? Now someone's actions are going to be tested here. In order to find that cure, because Allah gave us another test, what means are you going to take? And that's where your clock starts ticking. Are you going to do something very unethical? Are you going to find ways for a cure to haram to do that? Or are you going to find a good, healthy means, even if it requires you to be sacrificed or something from you to be sacrificed? So everything that we're talking about right now has to do with this one verse. It has to do with life and death. It has to do with this duality. And it has to do with actions that are built in order for this new technology, for instance, to be reached. Now, what are you going to do? That's where the actions come in. So everything on a human level, yes, we can benefit immensely, like landing on the moon. The technology, the middle portion, in order to reach all of that, the billions and trillions of dollars that had to be, had to be resources basically in order to achieve that. All those actions, Allah's going to test those people for all those actions that had to occur to us to reach that, right? But at the end, all of this comes back to us recognizing Allah, and when He throws something, when He gives us something, what we're going to do to achieve that, and let death and life be the two goalposts that you're gonna fall into one of those. Everyone has to be born, and when they're born, they're gonna have to die, right? So the resources thing is actually extremely important, because you and me can achieve resources through a very beautiful means, and yes, we can benefit and profit from it, right? Like bees, this business requires a lot of effort. Now, what he can actually be doing is he can be putting some coloring in this, and he can be doing a whole lot of crazy stuff to this and make 20 times as much more profit as he's doing. Or he can actually, like he said something beautiful. He said something about 50 hives, enough for him and his family to be comfortable. And that's where he knows where his risk is, right?
Yeah.
Now, someone could do something else. They could be like, I figured something else out. No one's going to know, right? And that goes with everything in this world.
Yeah.
You can be a car mechanic. You can take a little bit of a profit loss by being honest and fixing somebody's car and not telling them something else is wrong, right? And that follows everything, right? So I think that this perspective of sicknesses is actually super, super important, right?
So this is, I was thinking about what you were saying too, and I was thinking about this too, how Allah starts off that we have created death and life, right? And I look at it a little differently. I say that when I see death, I see like nothingness.
Yeah.
Right? And everything is dead until Allah gives it life.
Yeah.
Everything starts off dead.
Yeah.
Like when He created Adam, he was just nothing but elements sitting there.
Yeah.
Allah is the cause behind that.
SubhanAllah. Yes, sir.
Then it comes to life. So if you don't have the source, which is Allah, it's dead. It remains dead or it remains lifeless.
SubhanAllah. Yes, sir.
So the original state of mankind is probably just dead, lost. Nothingness.
Yeah.
The world is not, and we go back to that as well too, right? Like Allah will, in the end, destroy everything.
Yeah.
Right? It started that way, which is Allah alone.
Yeah.
And then everything was built.
SubhanAllah.
And it'll all go back to being nothing.
Yes, sir.
So the starting point is nothingness, is death. Everything's dead, right? And then Allah brings it to life, and He's the source behind that. They say the unmovable object, the whatever they title these things, right?
Yeah.
He's that source,
yes,
where everything comes from. Without that engine, without that life source, nothing else would work. That's how, I mean, because to be honest, it's like we can design all these things, right? But if you don't have, if you like,
it's just gonna be raw material.
Yeah, it's just material at the end of the day. It doesn't do anything. It's not functional.
Yeah.
Right? Allah gives it its function. Allah gives it its purpose. Without that, we don't know. Like all these bacteria, like for example, like we're seeing all these new, like just a simple thing like this, like how they're worried about greenhouse gases and methane now producing, and how it's melting certain areas in the earth where there's permafrost that's melting, right? It's releasing viruses that were frozen away at the permafrost level, and they're trying to survive. People say, oh, we've got an influx of anthrax now, right? Or whatever these things are, right? Oh, this is crazy. Yeah, but that virus is a creation. It's surviving as well too.
Yes, sir.
It's doing what you do when you come out and you eat food, when you kill an animal, when you eat vegetation, when you take from this, right? You're also killing. In order for something to survive, something must die.
Yeah, you're right. I don't mean to change. I just saw something really cool while we were talking. They just stopped, but they were all going after this one bee, and they were just like huddling around it really aggressively. Do you know why they did that by any chance?
They could be
playing around.
Yeah. I don't know about playing around, but
they just went around this one bee, and they were just like almost like latching onto it, and they had to free itself. I don't know.
That's how they communicate. Even like with the queen bee, if the colony gets too populated and they need to split, they'll stop feeding her and they'll start nipping at her when she tries to lay eggs.
I see. Yeah, because while we're talking, I was like, why are they acting so aggressive towards each other? Okay.
Yeah, just
so will they ever go off and create their own colony?
That's swarming. So now when I mentioned to you guys that they'll produce 10, 20, 30 queens, that if the mother is still there, the mother queen, she needs to get out because a mated queen doesn't sting, but a virgin queen can. So that virgin queen, if the mom is still hanging around, they'll fight to the death.
Her job is to remove every other queen because that's the process.
Right.
A mother and daughter have to fight to the death.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But typically, I've never witnessed that. Usually the mother and about half the colony.
So how do they fight? They sting each other?
No, they'll bite each other. They're very aggressive.
Oh,
but
really?
usually what I've seen is other bees will aid in that process.
So it's like a gladiator scene.
Wow.
And I've had times where there's another practice you can have is like, let's say a hive goes queenless, and I could take a mated queen from another hive and put it in this hive, and they'll either accept her or reject her. There's been several times when I've had it where I see them all trying to kill this new queen. They don't want her. Other times they'll accept her, and now she's their queen.
What do you think is the criteria they use, like pheromones or something?
Pheromones, I'd say some type of a fitness of why they may have already produced a queen, and I just don't know about it yet because she hasn't gone on her mating flight and come back. So they might already have a queen, and now there's this other one showing up. It's like, well, who are you?
It's so crazy with insects and animals. You can see like this microcosm of human behavior too. It's so amazing how we're all the same.
But
like you said, like they like gang up with. We see that all the time with humans. They find one enemy, they gang up, and they start like taunting, and then eventually start beating up and eventually killing somebody.
There's one thing here. We think that sometimes, and this is, and the reason why my mind is going here is because there's an ayah in the Quran. I'll tell you about it, but we think that they communicate through pheromones, but in reality, we don't know. Like, for example, them jumping on each other may make a certain sound that only they understand. It may be even I'll give you an example. I'll tell you why. With the ant, when Allah says the ant told the other ants to clear and make way for the army of Sulaiman. Yeah. Right? In the ayah in the Quran. And some of the haters of the Islam, they'll laugh. Ha, talking ants. Right? They'll say this. So they said, we know that ants don't communicate. They have pheromones. Right? That's how ants, they leave a trail and they go.
Yeah. Well, that's one mode of...
But modern research says otherwise. Yeah. They actually have a little rattler on the bottom, and they scrape that thing. And it moves in certain ways, and certain codes would understand where they can have conversations. Some of them will say, okay, I'm a worker ant. Or no, you go back to the hive, or do this, right? They actually communicate, some in just very simple commands and some in more complex. They're coming from the queen. The queen can make more complex statements and directives than the other ants, the worker ants. So little things that we don't realize and pick up, they can have their entire own language that we don't know about. It could just be they could be having conversations about, hey, we ain't taking you, right?
So
like
what Mort's talking about is called, I'm looking it up, antennal tapping. And ants often communicate by touching each other with their antenna. That this tactile interaction can convey information about food sources, nest conditions, or social status within the colony. And another way they communicate is also called grooming. Ants groom each other as a way to exchange chemical signals and reinforce social bonds within the colony. And then there is also an auditory communication called stridulation. Some ants produce sounds by rubbing body parts together, a process known as stridulation. This sound is used in certain contexts, such as during alarm responses or when ants are trapped and need assistance. So that's probably how they notified each other about the army coming.
Right. But if you look at further, the queen has more speech capabilities than the regular worker ants.
It's amazing it says this because when you have different queens in a hive, they do something called pipping. I believe it's pronounced.
Pipping.
If you look it up online, it almost sounds
perverted.
Or piping. That also sounds perverted.
Anyways, go ahead.
So you'll open the hive up and you'll hear it. It almost sounds like a parrot caulking. Yeah.
No way.
If you could look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Yeah. That's insane. So and you could clearly hear it?
Clearly.
So pipping is a series of short, high-pitched sounds produced by queen bee.
Can you play anything with it?
These sounds are typically made by queens who are still inside their cells, unhatched by newly emerged queens. The purpose is to form a communication between rival queens within a hive. It occurs in situations where there are multiple queens in a colony,
parrots going back and forth at each other,
and more than one queen is vying for dominance.
It's like a battle cry, bro.
Awesome. Allahu Akbar. Yeah.
Wow.
So when they start mocking Islam, like for saying, on the Quran mentions this 1400 years ago, that ants can communicate with each other, not pheromones, not by smelling each other, but by communication.
Yeah.
Even bees, they'll do like it's a type of dance where they'll buzz around to try to indicate and show other bees and recruit them of where there's a nectar source. So,
I watched a YouTube short on that. That's awesome. I watched a few stuff before, but man, this has been super informative, man. This is like
here we go. Here's the sound of
like volumes of knowledge within your life history.
That's not it. That's the fight they do.
So this is that ad right before the YouTube video. Hang on.
Man, bees are aggressive. Did anyone have any questions? You said some people had questions before.
I already asked some of them. I memorized
Okay.
these, but let me
A
check.
barrel of bees, a wine barrel to be exact.
Do you know this guy?
How many are there? You may
I'm just
ask.
joking.
Like there's millions.
Why? 'Cause he's white.
We'll find out.
So racist.
Oh, he made a hive out of a barrel.
Oh, let's see. Careful. Careful.
So this is upside down. So he would have tipped it upside down already.
Okay.
Hear that sound?
That?
That's the queen bee.
I heard it.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. That was the queen bee piping. So there's some virgin
Piping.
queen bees. It's springtime.
Did you hear that?
Hang on.
That sound.
Sounds
I
like a
heard
bird.
Cool.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. That was
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Wow, that's
There'll be
awesome.
times when I'm moving around a frame and a bee gets its little leg caught under something. They'll just be buzzing like crazy. Then you lift it off and it lets her go. Like they'll let you know that they're
She's
trapped.
ready. Yeah.
Wow.
Oy.
Wow.
Hmm.
They don't make any sound like that I
Yeah.
know of, and that I've ever heard. But
Wow.
just those queen bees.
Amazing.
Wisdom
Allahu
and
Akbar.
experience with all these years, man.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, dude.
Derek, anything you want to finish up the show with? Anything that we forgot to ask you?
No, I think you
about-
guys covered all your interests. I don't know if anybody else has questions.
So is the only way to purchase these just through supermarkets, or do you have like a direct thing too? Or you
We're on
don't do that?
Facebook.
Okay.
We're looking to put up a website, but
Okay.
I also want to make it more educational.
Got it.
Just, I would love to have more Muslim beekeepers. Like, how many Muslim beekeepers do you know?
None.
You're the only one.
You're the only one.
And it's such a rewarding, I want to say simple. There's some work to put into it, but it's another opportunity to reflect on Allah's creation and just be part of that whole system.
Everyone's just
Part of the
scared
system.
of getting stung. It's not that painful. And people just.
So are we doing that? Is anyone getting stung? Or are we
I've
just
already
gonna-
been stung before, so I don't really care.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the one that's being a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
You said you need.
Sheikh.
No, Sim told me, hey, we're going to be doing venom therapy on the episode. So I thought someone's going to get stung.
Well, because
but-
you,
Well,
always in
you
pain.
backed out.
Oh, it was, I was
You
going to be the
were
Yeah,
supposed
exclusive
because you're
one?
always in pain.
Oh,
I'm not in
can't do
pain.
that. No, I can't do that right now.
Oh,
I already got stung.
oh,
I earned my stripes.
He doesn't have enough tawakkul on Allah. He doesn't.
Tawakkul
Yeah.
also means that you have to ask the right people in order to get
Tawakkal
something done.
Allah. You don't have it, bro. It's okay.
No, this is something else.
We'll build you up. Don't worry, bro.
All right, brothers and sisters, thank you all for joining us.
Wow.
Make sure you like,
Great
comment
guest.
in this episode in the comment section below, and like or subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you all so much. Jazakallah khair. Brother Abdullah from Felten Farms. Be sure to check them out on Facebook. I'm going to leave their links in the episode description so you can check them out yourself. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
Until next time, you should.